Member Raw? Board Member Raw?
Here.
Board Member Bailey?
Here.
Board Member Avila?
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Fairclough-Sagers?
Present.
Chairman Losner?
I'm here as well. Do we have any deletions or deferrals?
We do not, Mr. Mayor. However, we do have a message from IT. We've lost connection with
This is Fletcher. This is Councilman Fletcher.
Okay. Danielle, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Basically, we're having issues with the YouTube channel on the web. So right now we are broadcasting on the Comcast TV channel and Uverse.
Okay. And I believe that...
And is not available. There's problems. I'm going to try to get him.
Okay. And Councilman Fletcher is trying to get on, Mr. Mayor. They're having problems.
All right, so we'll sit tight for just a moment, and if someone can let us know if he's restored in the next couple of minutes.
Will do.
Thank you all.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I've been able to join.
very good. Thank you. Good evening, Councilman.
Good evening.
All right. Tab 1 is the approval of minutes from September 8th, 2020. Do we have a motion for approval? The motion for approval of the September.
I'll move it.
We have a motion for approval by Councilwoman Bailey,
Second.
seconded. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes as presented? If none, are there any votes in opposition to the approval? Approved. Thank you. Next item, tab 2. Ms. Driver, is that you?
Yes, sir. On September 8th, 2020, the CRA Board approved the CRA fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. The CRA budget now needs to be amended because the detailed budget attached to the resolution that was approved on September 8th and to be submitted to the county was changed by reducing land acquisition by $467,443 and increasing Seminole Theater operations by $467,443. Staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the attached resolution approving the amended Community Redevelopment Agency's annual budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, beginning October 1, 2020, and ending September 30th, 2021. It is further recommended that the chairman and board members direct the executive director to submit said budget to the Homestead City Council for further approval. The proposed budget is a balanced budget. It equals $4,633,756 in revenues and expenditures for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Driver. Mr. Pearl, do we need to read the title? Tab 2 of the CRA.
Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the Community Redevelopment Agency budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021, providing for implementation, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? We have a motion for approval of the budget amendment.
Move approval.
Moved by Councilman Fletcher,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Bailey. Is there anyone wishing to be recorded as a nay vote on this matter? And appearing, motion carries. All right. Next item, tab 3, Ms. Driver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cirque Salon Studios is a collection of 25 suites where independent health, beauty, and wellness professionals cater to their clients. Cirque Salon Studios, who is currently located in Key Largo, plans an opening 5,000 square foot location on the Maori side of Homestead Station. The facility is projected to have 25 independent entrepreneurs, each with a minimum studio rent of $1,000 a month. The $75,000 incentive grant requested by Cirque Salon Studios will be used towards the build-out of the site and is contingent upon execution of a lease agreement for 5,000 square feet in Homestead Station. Staff recommends that the CRA board approve the attached resolution authorizing the executive director to enter into an agreement and award Cirque Salon Studios $75,000 from the Business Incentive Grant Program. And we do have the owner of the studios online to answer any questions, but prior to that, we have a short presentation, the pre-recorded presentation that she presented to us, followed by two really brief tours of her facility in Key Largo. So
Let's do that, and then we'll see if there are any questions of the operators. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to our vision for Cirque Salon Studios of Homestead. My name is Whitney McCachran, and I'm the owner and operator of Cirque Salon Studios of Key Largo. I'm looking forward to opening a second location in the Homestead area in the next 6 to 12 months. So who are we? Cirque Salon Studios was founded in 2008 and has 7 locations in Florida, South Carolina, and Virginia. Each location is operated independently. In 2018, I opened the Key Largo location. We're located at mile marker 101 in the beautiful Florida Keys. I have a background in finance, communications, marketing, and property management. Y sí, también hablo español. So what exactly is a salon suite concept? A salon suite transforms a large commercial space into efficient suites designed for salon and spa businesses. Cirque Salon Studios of Homestead will be a collection of approximately 25 suites where health, beauty, and wellness professionals will independently cater to their clients in a unique and customized environment. We believe that Homestead Station is the perfect location. Each studio comes equipped with a chair or treatment table and a shampoo or sink. All have access to shared laundry, break room, bathrooms, and lobby. When do we plan on opening? In the next 6 to 12 months in the greater Homestead area. With permits in hand, the construction process will take approximately 4 months, barring any unforeseen circumstances. It will take us 2 to 3 years to fill the studios and operate at 100% capacity. We are looking for a lease term of 10 years with options to extend. And where exactly in Homestead? Well, while we've identified a number of potential locations in the greater area, and we have determined there are sufficient licensed professionals to support the concept, we are focusing on Homestead Station as our first choice. Key factors for success will be the location in a large, thriving commercial center, adequate parking, and the correct mix of rent, triple net, and tenant improvement allowance to ensure that the financial plan is sound for the long term. This is where a potential grant for the CRA would help us. And finally, why do we believe this is a good model to pursue? By converting approximately 5,000 square feet into efficient salon suites, the commercial space will be transformed into a growth-oriented economic ecosystem that benefits the salon owner, clients, Cirque Salon Studios, the landlord, neighboring businesses, and the greater Homestead community. This business model benefits professionals because for as low as $1,000, a licensed salon professional can move into their own studio in as little as 48 hours. These entrepreneurs establish their own pricing and choose what products to sell. They keep 100% of their profits. Studio owners set their own schedules and can have access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Independent, not alone, is our motto. While the studio owners are almost always a sole proprietorship, they are surrounded by other like-minded professionals. In this crazy year that is 2020, we also found that the one-on-one interaction model allowed professionals to resume business more quickly after the recent COVID shutdown. The business benefits the landlord because the upscale environment will attract some 650 people per week to visit the businesses at Cirque Salon Studios once fully occupied. As a destination, they will likely patronize the adjoining businesses. This is a long-term relationship with a minimum lease term of 10 years. The landlord will gain a tenant with significant professional experience and daily oversight of the operations. There are also substantial leasehold improvements involved, converting the empty bays into a thriving business. And finally, and perhaps importantly, this business will benefit the larger Homestead community. Our model allows more women and minority health, beauty, and wellness professionals to grow their businesses and realize increased income potential. Using Cirque Salon Studios of Key Largo as a model, 92% of studio owners are minority and or women-owned, 33% are first-time business owners, and 17% employ others. Their success helps fuel not only their own families, but also provides additional income that is spent on other businesses in the community. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to joining the Homestead business community.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter. I'll take a small one since I have a 15-cent.
That's it for the presentations, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Let's have Mr. Pearl read the resolution into the record, and we'll open any questions and comments that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the agreement authorizing the allocation of business incentive grant funds to CSS of the Keys LLC, DBA Cirque Salon Suites, providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you. To start off, and it may have been in the materials, and if it was, I don't remember, I can't put my hands on it. Just for comparison purposes, how many suites are there in the facility in Key Largo?
In Key Largo, we have 21 suites occupying about 4,600 square feet.
Did you say 41?
21.
21, okay, so it's pretty comparable then to what we're proposing here. Okay. And how long after you did the build out and opened it up did it take to fill up the space to get to, you know, those projected visits here of 650 a week?
So we project 3 years. I've only been open 2 years in Key Largo, and we're on track. We're about 75% full, and we expect to completely be full in the next 6 to 12 months. And that's on line with the other 7 locations in the other states. About 3 years maximum, as little as 18 months, but 3 years maximum.
Okay, so those projections then are based on what you're doing now at the 75%?
Correct.
All right, very good. Thank you. I will not monopolize the microphone at the moment and open it up for any questions or comments from my colleagues.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Fletcher.
Thank you. I'd had this question earlier, but as I dove into the details a little further, I ended up finding out for this business incentive grant program, I wanted to know how much was in it, but it was actually in Ms. Driver's letter to us. There's $150,000 there now. They're requesting $75,000 of this to go support this particular application. Is there a limit to the funds that can be requested for the start of new businesses, Ms. Schreiber?
Not for this pot of money, no.
Okay, typically, last year, what did we provide in business incentive grants last year? Do you know?
We didn't provide any grants in the business incentive.
Okay, so this is a fairly new program.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher.
Mayor, may I ask?
Sure, Councilwoman, good evening. Good afternoon.
Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you. Ms. Driver, can you confirm if there are any other applications currently in process?
For the business incentive grant, no, there are not. And this grant, remember, this pot of money is for businesses that we want to attract to Homestead, particularly Homestead Station. And so this is not the traditional grant application process that we have with the other grants. We still have the commercial grant, and that's where they can get up to $25,000 depending on where they are. This pot of money, these funds give us the flexibility for larger projects that require a little bit more assistance for businesses that we think would energize the downtown area in the city of Homestead, maybe to a greater degree than another business. So this is actually the very first business that we've had the opportunity to use these funds for.
Thank you. And once the 150 runs out, there's no pot of money left to refill it throughout the rest of the fiscal year, correct?
No, that's not correct. We could move money from other areas in our budget. We had another business that came along and required, additional funding. We could move money from our budget to this line item.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Shelley.
Thank you, Mayor. The concept's kind of unique. I didn't realize the one existed in Key Largo. I think it is a kind of a unique idea. It's almost like an incubator type format for the particular fields of the salons and the nail technicians and things of that nature. And so to that respect, it's kind of a unique product. What I've been struggling with here is whether or not I'm comfortable allocating a subsidy toward the product, and that's where I'm at. I mean, I'd love to see them come in. I'd love to see them invest in the city. I'd love to see them kind of open up this unique product and provide an ability for local entrepreneurs to kind of get a jump start on building their business and their practice. But what I don't know yet is whether or not I think that's what I envisioned when we set up this incentive program, whether this is the exact type of business that I'm looking to try to attract, or not necessarily try to attract, but maybe willing to subsidize to attract to the downtown. And that's kind of where I'm struggling, I guess, a little bit on this one. A little bit. Plus, we have a lot of existing business owners, that are in the similar field that weren't subsidized when they started their businesses. And so, to potentially subsidize competition for them, I have some concerns about that as well. We have some well-established salons and nail places here within the city limits, that may find us subsidizing competition problematic for them. But I do have one question, I guess, as it relates to the layout. So I see the kind of quasi-site plan that they have as far as where they would have these each individual salon within the product itself. But what I'm curious about is what's it going to look like on the frontage itself with the windows? Because from what I can see, it doesn't look like you're going to have that storefront, that glass storefront that I think we all envisioned when we kind of designed Homestead Station, where you would be able to drive by and you would see the merchandise, or you would see the customers, or you would see, something that attracted you to want to stop and go in there and shop. The way they kind of have the layout, the question, I guess, is how much of the glass storefront will actually be, inviting versus how much it'll be blocked off and kind of be just a wall. If anyone has an answer to that.
So this is Whitney McCaffrin of Cirque Salon. I can assure you that we intend to maintain the storefront, and it's actually the windows that are the most appealing, in particular to hairdressers, because they want the natural light. So we would arrange the studios in the front. Those are premier studios. and we would save as much of the glass as we can. Obviously, there's a dividing wall in between two studios, so you may see a little bit of the wall, but otherwise we would try to showcase all of those windows in the front. So that's in terms of the layout. To answer your other concerns in terms of the competition, we actually are hoping that some of the salon owners entirely would choose to move their salon to certain studios, and we have had that experience at other locations. We're not just trying to cherry pick folks. We actually want to provide a forum for entire salons to operate more efficiently. And then thirdly, your first concern was in terms of subsidizing the business. The reason for this is because I have looked at other locations besides Homestead Station where the rents are much less, frankly. And so when Kamitra and I have been discussing, we think that, I love Homestead Station. It's a beautiful facility. I would love to be there, but it was not in my initial calculations because the rent was so much higher. So that is why this subsidies would help me move into that particular location.
Okay, and thank you for that. And that's what I was curious about was as far as the window frontage. One of my questions was, is a salon owner, do they want the privacy for their customers such that they won't be open to traffic that's paused there at a red light? Or on the other hand, is that considered to be part of, the draw? So it sounds like the idea would still to have those select salons be open so that people would see and that again would draw in, see people getting services performed and therefore maybe stopping and want to get the same services performed. A question, I guess, on the rent. This is more from the staffing perspective. I know one of the strategies when Homestead Station was opened, because one of the questions was, why haven't we rented out that space more quickly? And one of the answers, I guess, the strategy by Homestead Station themselves was by charging what would be considered maybe greater than Homestead market rents. The idea was to potentially attract and or hold out for more higher quality establishments that they were looking to fill those particular places with. Now, obviously, they because of COVID and other reasons, I don't think that's happened as quickly as maybe the owners had liked. So I guess the question is, why are we subsidizing now that higher rent? Because I still concur with that strategy. I think it's a fine strategy as we're trying to attract premier tenants to go into Homestead Station. But now it looks like we as the city are going to be now subsidizing Homestead Station with our dollars to account for this strategy to bring in, a product that can't afford that particular type of rent. So I guess that's my question to staff now, as we've kind of come full circle where, and again, I think this is a great product. I'm not trying to discourage this product from coming into the city. I think it's a great product. It's just the subsidy aspect of it. And now it seems like we are potentially subsidizing a organization or a company that can't afford the rents that have been somewhat inflated in order to encourage, other types of patrons. So if someone can maybe help expound on that.
This grant, Councilman, this grant is going towards build out. It's not going towards their rent. So it would be subsidizing the rent. We look at it as capital improvements in our own building. The city, we own Homestead Station. So, we look at this as, good investment of money into our own building. Additionally, it's activating the Maori side of Homestead Station, which honestly, most people want to be on the Chrome side, which is much more attractive. So putting this on Maori, we think that that's going to be a great activation for that street. And 5,000 square feet of that 9,000 square feet in the building. So more than half of that building is going to be out by one tenant. We think those are positive economic impact to our community, to Homestead Station, to downtown, and worthwhile this investment. And when we look at the return on investment, it's a good deal for not just the CRA, who we receiving in our TIP funding, but also it's a good investment for what the city is going to be receiving as well.
All right. Thank you. That's all the questions I have at this time, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Shelley.
Mayor, may I?
Sure. Good evening, Vice Mayor.
Good evening. I have a couple of questions. I understand the philosophy of the business incentive program to help bring businesses to our community and activate the downtown area. So inherent in that are subsidies. My question is, how did we arrive at $75,000? I know it takes about, I think I saw $600,000 to build out. So how did we arrive at $75,000? for the subsidy amount?
That is the gap funding that Whitney needed to make the numbers work. And Whitney, can you speak to that in a little bit more detail?
Sure. So that takes into account the price of the build out, which I said will take about 4 months and about $600,000 in order to be able to do it at that location.
Okay. And some of the numbers that were placed in the packet, I believe it said you'll anticipate about 600 some odd patrons per week. Did I read that incorrectly?
No, that's right. And so at 100% occupancy with 25 studios, most studios will have we're looking for an optimum mix of hairdressers, barbers, massage therapists, cosmetologists, estheticians, etc. And this business attracts very high-powered professionals who are really keen on making their own business work. These are not the folks that go 9 to 5 to the studio 4 or 5 days a week and sit around in a salon and wait for clients to come to them. These are go-getters who have their own social media profiles, their own Instagram followers, their own Facebook pages, etc. And they are working, particularly after COVID, they are working they start at 8 a.m. Some of them don't clock out until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and they're working 6 or 7 days a week. And so whereas a traditional salon, that small space, a certain hairdresser may only see 5 or 6 clients a day, these salon owners are doubling that in some spaces.
So, but that is the traffic that you receive in Key Largo. How are you forecasting those numbers here in Homestead?
Yeah, so that's actually based on, in Key Largo we're on about 75%. So what I did was with the increased studio numbers, times the 8 clients a week, times the number of studios, times the number of chairs that we have. I just did that calculation based on the track record once we are 100% full. So that 600 number is at 100% occupancy.
Right.
In 3 years.
So what do you anticipate the first year? What does that look like? How has that been in Key Largo?
Yep. So the first year we tracked at 40% occupancy, which is also in line with the other locations in the other states. At the end of year 2, which is the end of this month, we are at 75% occupancy. I projected 60%, so we're actually a little ahead of where we're at. And we expect by year 3, 100% occupancy.
Do you have any leads currently of any prospective salon owners that are really interested in moving their services to Homestead?
Interestingly, in my conversations with some folks on this call in the last 2 months, yes, I already have 3 leads, in fact. And basically what we do, we look for populations of cities with 25,000 folks or more in terms of actual residents. And we look for somewhere around 300 cosmetology licenses. As you know, Homestead is much larger than that, and there's over 2,300 cosmetology licenses in the greater Homestead area. So those numbers work for this model.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
If I may, Mayor?
Sure.
Good evening. I have a lot of similar concerns and a couple questions for the applicant. This is a little reminiscent of Art South for me. I don't know if anybody was ever there, but I really like this concept, especially for our downtown. I really like activating the Maori side of Homestead Station, but I especially like the opportunity I think that it'll afford a lot of our professionals here in the area to be able to have a startup that they don't have to have so much capital for with Beauty Schools of America. I think that this would, I think it would be a good fit. I think that, one question that I had for the applicant, with the 25 different salons, would they all be the same square footage, roughly?
No, we plan on having, depending on the framework, 3 or 4 doubles. which would accommodate a group of 2 or 4 professionals working together either at the same time or on shift schedule according to their needs. So of the 25, we've had 4 doubles, and we would have in the front windows probably another 4 to 5 that would be 1.5 times as big to accommodate those folks who A, want a little more room, B, are probably higher income earners and want to grab those front windows to showcase their artistry. But approximately 18 of them, yes, would be about the same size, which is basically a 10 by 10 room, each one with its own water feature, so they would have a sink or a shampoo station.
Okay, thank you for that. I think my only concern would be, I see that it's half of the total that we've set aside for this grant. But of course, then the upside is that it's a potential opportunity for 25 new small businesses to get their business started. Maybe it takes off and they'll be able to get a larger space. And I also see the positive of having those types of services at this type of station. So I think that's all. That is all I have for now.
Thank you.
Mayor, I guess thank you very much. I just want to say, well, a lot of the questions have already been answered on my list. The store frontage was kind of important to me because of this position on Mallory Drive. What the monies were being used for as far as from the grant and the build out. But I think most importantly, what I want to express is to this operator and this applicant is thank you for looking at the city of Homestead for your business and your business opportunity. I think your vision and your thought process on this location is really going to enhance the traffic to the location, and most likely will attract more businesses to look at Homestead Station. So I want to thank you for looking at the city and giving us an opportunity to speak with you and learn more about your concept. And I wish you much success in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. I guess I wanted to express, well, a couple of concerns I had that are similar to some of the concerns expressed, but I wanted to get some clarification from our CRA director. I think in response to Councilwoman Avila, you indicated that there were other commercial type grants for businesses of up to $25,000. And what immediately comes to mind, well, and why I asked this question is my initial reaction was that we're taking half of the initially allocated amount to one project. Now, I realize in theory that potentially creates up to 20 or 25 individual businesses over the next 3 years. So my concern was allocating such a large percentage of that to this one applicant. So I guess, Ms. Driver, you and I have had some conversations about an issue, coincidentally, that the purchaser of an existing salon is now having the issues that she's having with, although nothing really changing other than ownership of the business, not the building, this salon owner is required to do some upgrades and have inspections and do some code work that wasn't required for the former owner. Is there another pot of money available for someone in that position, or is this taking away from what's available to existing businesses in those types of situations?
This is not taking away from existing businesses. Again, this pot of money, the purpose of it was to incentivize businesses to come to Homestead, to come into downtown Homestead or the CRA area, but specifically downtown Homestead. And so, no, this is not taking away from those type of businesses.
Okay. Thank you. And, I share Councilman Shelley's concerns that we are, to a certain extent, subsidizing newcomers, perhaps to the detriment of those women, primarily, who came to town, bought a bricks and mortar site, reached into their pocket, signed a note mortgage or whatever lending instruments they needed to do, and are out there on their own and have, mostly lived through, from a business perspective, lived through COVID, and now we're putting a significant amount of money out there to potentially create more competition for them. And I don't know that the ones that perhaps both Councilman Shelley and I probably both have in mind are really interested in walking away from their investment of a significant renovation and expansion of a building to go into this type scenario. So I do have some concerns about fairness and competition and the perception that we were perhaps picking winners over those who are already here. So those are my concerns and comments.
With the time and season that we're in, I think we have to look at how do we survive and thrive and get past COVID? How do we regain some of the momentum that we had prior to the pandemic hitting? Because since the pandemic, there haven't been a lot of large businesses that were going to take up 5,000 square feet of Homestead Station knocking on our doors. There haven't been any other businesses that have been in contact with me that have expressed an interest into moving into Homestead Station and seeing how we can possibly support them. We created this pot of money for this sole purpose. This is not a small mom and pop business. This is a 5,000 square foot business that is going to support 25 additional other small businesses. So looking at it that way, and then considering that this is also probably going to attract other individuals to come in and look at leasing at Homestead Station. Several businesses have been sitting back, and I've had a few tell me, they're just waiting to see what happens. Well, Ms. McCachran is not waiting to see. She's willing to invest, $600,000 more, actually more than that, into Homestead Station. Not to say that we're not neglecting our current businesses that are existing here. We reach out to them, we support them. We have the pot of money that's available. As I said, the small business grant support for them. Shalom that you mentioned, we've been in contact with them, and so if they have a need, they're eligible to apply for one of the current grants that we have as well. So we are supporting our local community, the ones that have been with us and suffered through and have been faced. We have to look and be creative and try to bring in additional businesses. So that's the hope with this funding. But I hear you loud and clear, Mr. Mayor. I hear you, Councilman Shelley. We don't want anyone to feel like that we're investing in their competition. But at some point, we could run into, if we wanted to support a big restaurant that came into Homestead Station, and our other restaurants would have that same qualm with us. So do we have a non-compete clause in our grant? I look to you all for direction with that.
Thank you, Ms. Driver. We have a motion for approval of car number 3012 for the award of this grant.
Make the motion. Move it.
Moved by
Second.
Councilman Roth.
Second.
Is that Councilwoman Avila? Or is that Vice Mayor? Vice Mayor, okay. Any final comments from the board? And appearing in Madam Clerk, let's have a roll call vote.
Board Member Ross?
Yes.
Board Member Shelley?
No.
Board Member Bailey?
Yes.
Board Member Fletcher?
No.
Board Member Avila?
Yes.
Board Member, Vice Chairwoman Fairclough-Sagers?
Yes.
Chairman Losner?
No.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We look forward to it. It's a unique concept, and looking forward to see that build out and it fill up very quickly. I just hope you understand where those of us are coming from with respect to, our concerns, but thank you. Best wishes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right. Next item, tab 4, car number 2993. Let's have Mr. Pearl read that by title first, and then we'll go into the reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a resolution of the City of Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency approving a purchase and development agreement with Centennial Management Corp., authorizing the CRA Executive Director to file certain land use and zoning applications required for the future development of the property, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Ms. Driver, is it yours?
Yes, sir. Staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the attached resolution authorizing, 1, the CRA Executive Director to enter into a modified agreement with Centennial for the purchase and development of the shotgun property, and 2, direct CRA staff to initiate the filing and processing of the required land use and zoning applications necessary for the future development of the proposed mixed-use, multifamily, affordable senior community as provided in the modified agreement. In the meeting on June 17th, the board directed staff to go back and revise the agreement that was presented to them from Centennial Management. This solidifies the proposal in contract form, and it's, what it would look like as a contract. If you have any questions, the applicant is currently on the line to answer any questions that you all may have.
Okay. Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak on this revised item? Anyone on behalf of Centennial?
Good evening. This is Paul Bilton. How are you doing, everybody?
Hi. Good evening, Mr. Bilton.
Good evening. We are here primarily to take answers. To take questions and try to provide answers rather than give a presentation.
All right. With that in mind, then, I'd reach out to my board members and let them begin picking your brains.
Mayor, if I may?
Sure, please.
Thank you. Mr. Bilton, how has the pandemic changed the course of the project and the financing that Centennial was looking into for this project?
In short terms, it has not. Of the affordable housing sector, the funding sources there have not, at least not as far as we're concerned, as far as what we see, has not been impacted. I also believe that by the time this is going to materialize, we'll hopefully have better times than right now as far as that's concerned. But no, that is not anticipated to be a problem.
Thank you. So would you say that the last presentation and the information and direction with regards to how the project would be funded is the same as before?
Yes, we have discussed a couple of different options, and they are largely the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Let me jump in here, Mr. Bilton. At the prior meeting, I think it was back in March, might have been one of our first, or if not the first, virtual type meeting. The contract before us had two different financing alternatives and different pricing for the underlying land. We had some discussion, and we wanted the applicant to come back, and the prior discussion was at 83 units at $2,075,000 purchase price, contingent upon a specific funding source. It's my understanding now that in order to qualify for that funding source, for a senior project, that the minimum number of unit requirement has increased to 110. Now, typically, my understanding is that these similar type projects along the transit corridor and those outlying areas are typically calculated in terms of numbers of units. That determines the underlying land price to, I guess, the greatest extent. My question to you is although we are increasing by 27 units to meet the baseline funding criteria, the proposed purchase price of the property has not increased.
We have two funding options that we have discussed. One was the 9% low-income housing tax credits, and we talked about the sale loan option, both of which are through Florida Housing Finance Corporation. It is only the 9% tax credit option which has the unit restriction at 110 units, and we had tried to lobby to get that reduced. It did not work. So for a 9% application, we will not be able to do neither the current zoning limited 67 units nor the 80-some units. So I don't have a pro forma in front of me in terms of how the land cost might change, but I think that there would be a difference possibly in land price between those scenarios under a 9% scenario. But again, that doesn't really, let me just finish real quick. That doesn't do us any good if we don't have the 110 units. Now, when we get to the sale loan, it's very limited, the amount of funding that is available. I provided a pro forma to Comitra today for the original 67 units, and even the low price, which I believe the board initially did not like much, of $500,000, whether we have 67 or 83 units, you get a little bit more sale funds and you have a little more construction money, and it's such a tight pro forma to begin with. It has a large funding gap of about $1.5 million. So there really isn't any difference between the two scenarios under the sale loan option.
Well, but as the basis of my question here tonight, it was my understanding at the prior meeting that the higher purchase price was available only under the 9% funding mechanism. And the contract before us provides for that mechanism. And again, we were all operating under a maximum number of units, I think, on the last iteration of 83. Now we're talking about 110 to meet the criteria to go apply for that. But help me understand why the price of the land does not increase commensurate with the increase in the number of units, because under the last contract, had we entered into it under the terms of the last funding cycle, the purchase price would have equated to $25,000 a unit. Under this scenario, we were at below $19,000 a unit.
Yeah, that is a good question. If we do increase the number of units under a 9% scenario, we might be able to do a little better based on a per unit land price. To be honest with you, I wasn't anticipating that question because we had gone back and forth on this agreement for some time without discussing the price other than the fixed number price we always had. So I'm not sure to what extent we could do a little differently.
And in case you don't, out in the real world, I have a real estate law practice, okay? So, and I pay attention to these things. I've been involved in the past in similar situations. And again, my opening comments were that the price is in large measure, the purchase price calculated on a per unit basis. So I think our instructions last time were to come back with a contract for $2,075,000 at what we all believe was the maximum number of units at that time, which was the 83, which equated to 25 a unit, $25,000 a unit. So while the contract before us contemplates that you will have to do at least 110 units for the project, the price has not changed, but yet it's proposed that we accept this contract at 110 units in order to enable you to get that 9% funding mechanism to do senior housing, and that funding mechanism would enable this developer to offer the higher price. But again, that was at the 83 units 6 months ago. So I'm struggling to understand why the price did not increase by the number of additional units above and beyond the 83 that we talked about several months ago.
Paul,
Go ahead.
is Mr. Sleazy on the line?
I thought he would be, so I'm hesitating because, again, I thought he would be on the line, and ultimately he is the decision maker.
I thought I saw Ms. Roque on the line earlier.
She was.
Hello, we're here.
She was on the line.
I hear her say you're here. It sounds like you're in.
We're here. Hello, can you hear us?
We can hear you, Ms. Roque.
All right, beautiful.
Okay, I got an answer now, if you can hear me better than that. And the proposal for the 83 units reflects 25,000 per unit, and we'll be happy to stay with the 25,000 per unit for each additional unit. So,
Okay.
So the per unit price would stay the same, and the overall land
Per
price
unit,
would go up.
whatever the final number of units would be at $25,000 per unit.
Only for 9% credit. Only for
I
9%
understand, yeah.
credit.
Yeah,
Right.
no, that's all we're talking about now, Louis. No question.
Yeah, I do not misunderstand that in the least. The contract before us talks about 110 units at the 9% tax credit. And thank you for that clarification, because that is, an additional $750,000 potentially from what we talked about to today to go back into the CRA that is bearing the brunt of a lot of budget issues in this budget year of the fallout of COVID-19. I just want to say for my fellow board members and staff, and both for the applicant, I do have some concerns about the land use approvals that are going to be necessary to implement these 110 units. We're talking about going from a currently permitted 10 units per acre to 30 units per acre at the 110 units. And while I understand this property is unique in a lot of ways, I don't want to put the city in a position that others come in with other properties and have all of a sudden had their potential density tripled by virtue of this project. I read last week where I think the Pinnacle Group wants to come in and take out a county project in Homestead, and the approved density there is now 100. They want to eliminate the project that's there now, dating from the 70s, and go to 300. And I don't know that that's really where we are as a CRA board or a council. So, and maybe if is Mr. Cordino or any member of his staff on with us tonight to maybe talk us through the land use issues that we'll have to address to get to the 110 units?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is Michelle Lopez, and I'm on for Development Services.
Aye. Well, is it correct that basically in a nutshell, the comp plan and land use designation and some zoning would have to undergo modifications to permit the 110 acres at this site? And my concern is that we not throw open the doors across the board in the Southwest, and certainly not in the entire city, to those, coming in and saying, well, you did it for your property, why can't you do it for mine? Can we now, is there a way that we can navigate those troubled waters?
Yes, sir, there is. Myself and Weiss-Serota looked at this matter very carefully over the last couple of months. And the way that we can structure the code changes and the comp plan amendment is specifically for a mixed-use multifamily senior residential community in the traditional multifamily neighborhood sub-area of the Southwest PUN. So what that means is other properties that are zoned traditional multifamily neighborhood would not necessarily be able to realize the additional density because they're not mixed-use multifamily senior residential projects.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Somewhat. What my concern is that, with that new designation or that new allowance, that we get potentially could get top heavy with senior accommodations. And I know that next week at council meeting, we're going to have some discussions and thereafter about our real vision to establish some equality across the board in housing and commercial and job and educational opportunities, specifically in the Southwest. And I don't want to sacrifice what could potentially be single family home ownership or much lower density of an ownership type project because we've thrown open the doors to high density senior housing. Again, everybody's heard me say there's a time and a place for everything. So I guess we'll have to navigate that more fully when we get to that point. But thank you, Ms. Lopez. Colleagues, council members?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Fletcher.
Yes, thank you. Just quickly, I noticed that we are changing from a 3-story to a 4-story building. Do we have certain height limitations also on our current buildings that we're going to have to change as well, Ms. Lopez?
Yes, sir. The code in the Southwest PUN currently stipulates that the maximum height is 5 stories or 70 feet. In the proposal that we reviewed, there was no changes to that language that's already established in the code.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, no further questions. Looking at the previous product that Centennial's provided us, I think it's going to be a big upside for the Southwest community, and I look forward to moving this forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Just to clarify, it's my understanding that the appearance of the product will be that it was substantially that as was presented several months ago in terms of appearance. Board members, anything further?
Mayor.
Councilman Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is another one I'm struggling with because the last go around, I've never been a big fan of the 20 units per acre that's currently allowed in the Southwest Master Plan. I've always thought that that's too much density for that location, given the roadways that we have currently getting people in and out of the west side of town. To start building a lot of 20 unit per acre housing developments, I think is really going to have some major traffic implications. And so I struggled when this one came before us the last 2 times with the level of density that was being proposed. What helped mitigate that was the senior component of it, being that seniors are less likely potentially to be generating traffic, whether because they're driving less or things of that nature. And so that seemed, and it was a need that we needed to fill. And so I was kind of able to stomach when we got up to 83 units per acre, 83 units in total, which I think was just right around 20 units or maybe even a little greater than 20 units per acre for this particular project, given the history of it, the wanting to develop it and finally turn the corner with this particular project. But that was a struggle for me to get to last time. And now here we are wanting additional units, which I think we're now at 32 approximately units per acre under the 110 that's being proposed. And I just don't know that I can get there with that additional density. I understand why the request is being made as a result of funding and some other things, but I have similar concerns that the mayor's raised in that, as it was, I was uncomfortable with where we already were, and now we're taking and raising the bar even higher. And yes, we're only going to allow it under certain zoning, but the only people that prevent them from developing and changing that zoning is us at the council level. So, if we do it for one group, and then the next organization or the next developer comes in and says, well, all I need is a rezoning to this particular type of zoning, and then I can get up to 30 units per acre. And now all of a sudden, we're again in a situation where now we're even worse than 20 units per acre, and the traffic over there becomes unmanageable. You don't have the infrastructure, the roadways, et cetera, and you're not close enough to mass transit to kind of accommodate that type of density. So I just, it's more of a comment than question at this one. I understand where we all are on this as far as, why the request is being made. I just think it's exceeded my comfort level as far as being able to allocate, agree to, or vote in favor of this level of density that's currently being proposed. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Shelley. Appreciate it. Council members?
Mayor, I got a couple questions too, please.
Sure. Councilman Roth, please.
Thank you. What would be the property tax future allocation to the city with this project? Does anybody have that number? Or an idea of that number? Because obviously we're not collecting any property taxes on it now, but does anybody know what that number would be?
Would the subsidized housing portion be exempt?
That's what I'm asking.
This is Paul Bilton. No, it is not exempt. We do pay taxes on it, calculated based on the income it produces, like an income operating development.
Okay, so it does help us a little bit with some additional revenues to the city. I don't know what that number would be. It'd be nice to know that, but it's not important at this point. But at least we know that we will get some taxes. I do have an issue with the higher density, but this area hasn't had any new development in it in years. And I'm a firm believer that
I'll do it as soon as I get a chance now.
Once somebody begins to develop in an area that hasn't been developed in a long time, I think there's an effect that it takes on a community in that area that will expand from what investment is made in this area. Right now you've got vacant lots there, and you've got housing around that area that hasn't been basically touched in 20 or 30 or 40 years. Some of those properties have been there for a long time, and I think it will change the makeup. The density does concern me somewhat because you only have one road in, one road out over there. But I still think that the improvements to the area will help us with the future projects we want to talk about with equalities and things of that nature in the southwest section. So I'd still like to know a little bit more about how they're going to get people in and out of that area. 110 units is quite a bit. I'm assuming they won't have, a lot of them won't have their own transportation. I'm not sure what the parking situation is going to be, but then you've got the services that will be coming to the area, the buses that will be coming and picking people up and taking them to the doctors and things like that. So I don't know if there's any way to forecast that or project it in the future, but I like the project. I think the area needs the project, And I think the product that we've seen coming from this developer is going to change at least that small little area of the southwest section for the better, and hopefully improve that area in the future. I look forward to it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. Council members?
Mayor, if I may?
Sure, Councilman.
Thank you. I just have one comment and one question. I have the same concern regarding the density. I also am trying to picture that extra story on top. But I think in the end, I think that this is something that we desperately need, especially for our seniors in the Southwest. My question for the applicant is, now with that extra story, do you see that the extra units will affect the retail component of the project? You're muted, sir.
That's better. No, under the 9% scenario, we are envisioning a similar commercial component as before. As far as the taxes was I mentioned earlier, should be a guesstimate of about $1,000 per unit per year. And I think when it comes to the traffic, the additional 27 units we're talking about is not a huge number in the big picture. And it is quite clear that an elderly community requires a lot less and generates rather a lot less traffic than would a family type of development. These are 1 and 2 bedroom units for the elderly. It's not the multiple cars. It's totally different from a family demographic.
Okay, thank you. And in the last few months, have any other retailers reached out or shown any interest?
I'm not sure about that. I don't personally know, but I'm sure we'll be able to find somebody. I'm not abreast of that.
Okay. You may have
Thank you, Councilman Bailey. Mr. Bilton, one thing on page, and you don't have to have it in front of you, but on page 10 of the contract, subparagraph, I guess 18.2C, talks about the project will include no more than 5,000 square feet of commercial leasable space. Do we have a floor? Was a minimum ever established? And I'll open that to Ms. Driver or staff or the applicant. I know we've got a cap on the commercial space, but I don't see a floor. I know we all intend for there to be some sort of commercial component there.
I don't recall there being a floor, but I'm sure we'd be happy to put one in.
Okay. Ms. Driver, do you recall any discussions or anything to that effect in the prior incarnation of the contract?
Initially, it was the board's desire to have 6,000 square feet of commercial, but that was before we completed the survey and discovered that it was only the land was smaller than we had anticipated. So we couldn't accommodate the 6,000, but we never set a floor in the.
Yeah, because the way the contract is written, it says will include no more than, rather than expressed as not less than but shall not exceed.
Mr. Chair, if the board wishes to put a floor in, the staff would be more than happy to accommodate.
And we have no objection. Whatever works for you is fine with us.
Well, I may be a frustrated architect, but I'm not an architect and I'm not a planner, and I don't know kind of what was envisioned in those. I don't recall what was envisioned in those first drawings we saw, if it was something other than the 6,000.
The original drawing was 6,000. It wasn't anything more than 6,000. As a matter of fact, the original which came along with the proposal was less than 6,000. After we brought it before the board, there was a request from the board that we increase it to 6,000. So again, if you all would like a floor, we'll be more than happy to put a floor in. You can direct. The code doesn't allow for more than 5,000, but we're here to do as you direct.
Well, I'm kind of hesitant to throw a number out there as a minimum because, that minimum may as well, in some cases may as well be nothing or certainly limits, the uses. I mean, because we talked in terms of a small market or some sort of medical offices. I've got to leave that to the people who really do that for a living to design and plan those types. So that's just something I want to point out in the contract that it provided a not more than, but we didn't have a guaranteed minimum. And it's my perception that this board wants to ensure that there is some level of commercial component in this project.
Well, from our perspective, again, if there's any way you would like to formulate that, we understand that the number is not going to be zero, even though it technically could be. So reasonably.
Well, I guess at some point we're going to have site plan approval. Yeah, we can look at it then. All right. And just, for those who have concerns about the density, I did too. That should come as no surprise. And based upon my conversation today with our council, we're going to have the opportunity to really perhaps laser focus and not open those doors to unbridled applications to do the same thing at this high density, at the time that the potential code changes come before us. So while this, 30 is not something that I have ever voted for or probably ever vote for, again, in terms of units per acre, given the uniqueness of this and the safeguards that we can put in place as to other potential requests, I'm willing to let this go forward on that basis tonight. So, Vice Mayor, anything to add before we ask for a motion?
Yes, I just wanted to add, I was a little hesitant about the amount of units on that property, the density, but my excitement for some development coming into this area outweighs the hesitation that I have towards density. I think it's going to be a great product, particularly for our senior citizens community. And in light of my mild reservations for the density, I am in favor of this project.
Do we have a motion on this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would just like clarification on something because we talked about 2 points, and the motion, I want to make clear, we got a commitment on 25,000 per unit. So at 110 units, that's $2.75 million. Is everybody on the same page with that?
Okay. And that would necessitate an adjustment to paragraph 19.3 on page 12.
Correct, sir. And I just want to make sure any motion takes into account any changes that we're stipulating.
Sure. Okay. What else?
So that was the primary change. And then to the paragraph that you pointed to earlier, without setting a floor, we could tweak the language in 18.2C to just say the project will include a commercial leasable space with not to exceed 5,000. So to make clear that the commercial space is intended to be included without actually putting in a hard floor.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Pearl. So, with that in mind, do we have a motion to that effect to approve this contract subject to those issues, that the purchase price will be calculated at $25,000 per residential unit, and the language being tweaked regarding commercial leasable space?
Mayor, I'll make the motion. I have a question. I know there's a maximum of 5,000, but should there be a minimum set as well?
Like, I reconcile myself that we're going to deal with that as site plan approval, rather than get into playing architect and planner here at contract approval.
Fair enough. So I'll make the motion to move it as as conditioned by the 25,000 per unit and maximum 5,000 square feet of commercial.
I'll second it.
Yeah, okay, moved by Councilman Ross, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. Anything further? Roll call vote.
Board Member Shelley?
No.
Board Member Bailey?
Yes.
Board Member Fletcher?
Yes.
Board Member Avila?
Yes.
Board Member Ross?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Faircourt Tigers?
Yes.
Chairman Losner?
Surprisingly, at density, yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Sweezy and Mr. Bilton. Appreciate your being here and your cooperation with these small issues in the contract. So thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next item, tab 5. Discussion car number 2997, Flagler Lot Brownsfields cleanup grant application. Ms. Driver?
Yes, sir. This is a discussion item. On October 28, 2020, the Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency will be submitting an application to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for a $500,000 brownfields cleanup grant to remediate the CRA-owned property located at South Flagler Avenue between East Maui Drive and South Chrome Avenue. This is commonly referred to as the Flagler Lot. The U.S. EPA Brownfields Grant Application Community Notification Policy requires applicants to allow the public an opportunity to provide comments and input regarding the grant prior to submission of the application. Any comments that will be expressed tonight from the public will be included in the application. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council, that the CRA Board approve the attached fiscal year 2021 U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Brownfields Cleanup Grant application for the removal of hazardous substances from the property known as the FEC Parcel 2, located at the north side of South Flagler Avenue between East Maui Drive and South Chrome Avenue.
Thank you. And for clarification, this is just an approval to file an application, not to accept the grant. This application stage only.
That is correct.
Thank you. Council members? So do you need a motion to proceed then, approval to proceed to file?
I would pose that question to legal.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that was the requested action, the motion to permit staff to submit the application.
Okay. Board members?
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
Motion for approval by Councilwoman Avila.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Roth. Anything further from council? We need to open a public hearing for public comment. Ms. Pearl?
No, sir, this is ministerial. You're fine.
Okay, very good. All right. We have a motion and a second for approval of the filing of the U.S. EPA Brownfields Cleanup Grant application for the Flagler Lot. I have a motion and a second. Does anyone wish to be recorded as a nay vote? None being heard, and motion carries. Do we have anything further from council? Anything further from CRA Director or the City Manager?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No, sir.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, are we ready to roll over into the special call? Or do you need a moment?
ITS might need a few minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, for the public, we've adjourned the CRA meeting, and in just a moment, we will open the special call city council meeting.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Fletcher.
Yeah, I'm going to step away for like 5 minutes. I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we're ready from IT.
All right, very good. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the City of Homestead special call city council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, and it is 6:22 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
John Garrett.
Councilwoman Avila.
Present.
Councilman Shelley. Councilman Shelley. Councilman Ross.
Yes, I'm here.
Councilwoman Bailey. Councilwoman
Yes,
Bailey.
I'm here. I'm here.
Councilman Fletcher. Vice Mayor Fairclough-Staggers.
Present.
Councilman Shelley. Mayor Losner.
I'm here. Thank you. All right. Tab 1 is car number 3014, fiscal year 2021 general fund budget amendment. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On September 23rd, 2020, Council adopted the fiscal year 2021 budget during its second budget hearing special call. On September 30th, 2020, Council held a follow-up budget workshop and directed staff to hire 4 new police officers to be funded as follows, up to 4 new police officers to be funded as follows. The Seminole Theater operations of $467,443 will now be funded from the CRA instead of the general fund. This will be funded by an equivalent reduction in the CRA funds originally budgeted for land acquisition. 2, the mayor and council budget will be reduced by $49,000. 3, the $516,443 freed up appropriations will be transferred to the police department budget and combined with a $101,000 reduction in police overtime for a total of $617,443. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve and amend the appropriations for the departments within the general fund for the fiscal year 2021 budget as described in the background information. According to Florida statute 166.241, section 5A, appropriation for expenditures within a fund may be decreased or increased by motion recorded in the minutes if the total appropriations of the fund is not changed. Since neither the CRA nor the general fund's total appropriations are being impacted, the council can approve this amendment by a motion.
Thank you. All right, council. Have any questions, comments, or a motion for approval of this budget amendment?
If there are no questions, I'll move it.
Thank you. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey. We have a second? Are we on? Can you hear me now?
Sorry,
I'll
I
second
muted.
Okay. Second by Vice Mayor?
That is correct, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anything further from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey.
Yes.
Councilman Ross.
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher. Councilman Shelley. Councilwoman Avila. Councilwoman Avila.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough-Staggers.
Yes.
Mayor Losner.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I caught the last end of that. Just wanted to reflect my vote as a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And
Motion carries.
Madam Clerk, you also got Mr. Fletcher, Mr. Shelley rang in at the last moment as you were moving on.
Yes.
Did you catch his vote?
Yes, I did, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, good, thank you. Is there any further business for the special call, Madam Manager?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Any further from council? Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Fletcher.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. This special call meeting is adjourned. Madam Clerk, do you need a moment to roll over into the committee of the whole meeting?
Yes, please, for ITS, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, ready or no?
I think ITS would need a few minutes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, very good. Thank you. I want to call the City of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Today is October 13th, 2020, and it is 11:28 p.m. And unlike the last two meetings we have tonight, I'll remember to read in the disclaimer about this being a virtual meeting. Due to COVID-19, this will be a virtual committee of the whole meeting. The city will be accepting public comments as part of the meeting, which comments can be emailed to publiccomments@cityofhomestead.com. Public comments on agenda items can be submitted by noon Monday, October 12th, 2020, and will be included in the minutes. Comments are limited to 300 words per comment. You should provide your name and address for the record. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Fletcher?
Present.
Here.
Councilman Rana?
Here.
Councilwoman Avila?
Here.
Councilman Shelley?
Here.
Vice Mayor Searles-Sagers? Vice Mayor? Mayor Rosner?
I'm
Mayor
here.
Rosner?
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
No, Mayor, there's not, but just a point of clarification. I think when you mentioned the time, you said 11:28 instead of 6:28.
I probably mumbled. It was 6:28. Okay. So we have a presentation. That's tab 1, car number 3015, a presentation from the YMCA. Madam Manager, do you have any remarks to preface this presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, the Young Men's Christian Association, the YMCA of South Florida, has asked to be able to make a presentation to council regarding the Homestead YMCA located at Harris Field and with regard to its future operations. And some time ago, the Y advised us that in light of their continued deficits, they intended to turn over the facility to the city as of the end of September of this year. And we asked that they wait on that decision until such time they had an opportunity to present their proposal to the city council, and staff is seeking your direction.
Okay, thank you.
And we are prepared now to, IT will start the presentation.
Okay, let's do that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Woods. I am the president and CEO of the YMCA of South Florida. Mayor, City Council, Kate, City Manager, Jerry, our Parks and Rec team, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity tonight to present our plan to you as a unified front to be able to do a renovation and expansion of the YMCA in Homestead. I'm very, very excited about the proposal we have put before you. So all of you have received this proposal. I've also met with each of you before and after COVID, so you should be very familiar with it. Included in your packet tonight is also the term sheet for the WISE relationship with the city and the WISE relationship with La Jardine, so that we can hopefully expedite your decision making as we go forward. So I'm going to flip through these slides rather quickly because you're also familiar with this. Many of you know, as you understand the mission and vision of this YMCA, we have had a significant footprint in the city of Homestead for many, many years, and we appreciate that, but it's time we take it to the next level. I shared this slide with you, as I shared with you before in my meetings, that the Y does incredible work in South Florida. We have facilities all over the 2 counties, and I might mention that many of those facilities are partnerships and with municipalities and other cities that are very unique and very special, which gives us the opportunity to do a better job of serving our community. So let's go right to the discussion we have with Homestead. 5 years ago, the YMCA of Broward County and Miami merged to become the Y of South Florida. At that point, we started really focusing on the operations of all of our locations, and especially in Homestead. As you can see, over the last 5-6 years, the organization has had significant deficits out of the city of Homestead. Now, let me mention, I'm going to blame that on a facility. I'm going to suggest that if we had a new state-of-the-art facility, our Y would be hopping with members and activities from families all across our city and South Homestead. So I really want to encourage us to look at the fact that running this deficit has been a significant hardship on the Y as a whole. And in addition to that, our preschool program. So as many of you know, the Y has been operating a preschool. We have looked to alternatives to find third-party providers for running this preschool, knowing that a preschool program is significant to the residents of Homestead. And so you can see we've also run another deficit. So for the last 5-6 years, we're pushing about $400,000 to $500,000 a year deficit with this particular location. So during COVID, we all sat down and said, we got to put a plan together. And we worked with our architects. We also brought our partners, La Jardine, to the table. And I can tell you, Eddie and Adi has been a blessing to work with them. You're very familiar with their operations because they are a staple in South Florida and Homestead and Florida City. And so you're familiar with their program offerings. You know that they bring together a very, very valuable resource to this community. So we sat with the architect, all of us, and we said, let's dream what this could look like. One of the things Les Jardines suggested was that they needed a larger footprint because they have kids on waiting lists and they need more space to accommodate these families. So we have carved up this building to a place where we can provide additional services in building 200 and 400 for that preschool. We've sat down with the architect and put some renderings together, and as you can see, we've done the renovations and redesign of some of the classrooms, all of which this entire building will be completely renovated with the exception of the exterior of the building and the roof. And all these years we've had issues with facilities, from air conditioning units to roofing to plumbing. All of that will be fixed as a result of this partnership and collaboration. You can see the expansive programs that La Jardine intends to have, and you can see the architectural design of their entrance for drop-off and pickup of their children, which can also be used as a venue for activities outside for the kids. This is an architectural view of the YMCA space, and we have moved the location of the entrance of this space further down in the facility so that we can not have such a long hallway, but indeed walk through the front door and see through the back door to the swimming pool. It's beautiful, beautiful architectural design that we have using the existing structure of the building. This will be a state-of-the-art facility with lots of brand new toys and equipment to provide our members that we believe deserve to have the best. In addition, a view from the roadway so that people driving up and down US 1 will have an opportunity to see the Y for what it is now in the future, and the beautiful facility and space that we have. So what makes all this work? As you know, this is about a 50,000 square foot facility. 35 of that would be the YMCA, 15,000 would be dedicated to La Jardine. First things first, we have to go into a new lease agreement with you, the city, in order to move forward. We are currently on a month-to-month, and we are recommending a 20-year lease so that we show our commitment to this community. You'll also see that one of the most important things is you giving us the permission to sublet to La Jardine, our partners. Again, in your packet is this information, so you will be able to review in detail the terms of this particular lease agreement with the city. In addition to that, this is the agreement with La Jardine, another 20-year agreement with La Jardine. La Jardine would not only invest capital dollars into the renovation of their space, but they would also pay a lease agreement with the YMCA, which then will be capitalized to do the YMCA portion of the renovation of this space, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. This agreement is also in your packet for you to review. It's all in draft form. In addition to that, we will partner with La Jardine to expand programs and services to all of their sites and locations, which I think have 8, to their children and families. And we would do a lot more community events for the community at large, and support a lot of the work that the parents and the staff do at La Jardine. So this is where it all comes down to. La Jardine will contribute $3 million of capital to the renovation of their space. Now, they have to write a grant and get the approval of that, which they would receive that information March, April of next year, but they seem to be pretty confident that they will be able to secure those dollars. In addition to that, I'm asking that the City of Homestead contribute $2 million over the next 10 years. That's $200,000 a year to commit to this capital project, of which is a $10 million project. I'll come back to that in a minute. The Y would be responsible for going after new market tax credit dollars. If we don't get it, then we're still on the hook to be able to fund the rest of the operations and find the capital resources. We'll capitalize the lease terms of the agreement, as you can see there, and that's what will support a lot of the work that we'll do with the other portion of the renovation. And then the Y would also be responsible for coming up with an additional $1 million of revenue for the capital expansion. That's a $10 million project. All money tied to this project will stay in the City of Homestead and will be reinvested back into this community. Beyond the 10 years of the capital investment, we will continue to keep those dollars here in Homestead. Outcomes will serve more children. We'll offer more programs. We'll expand our programs to you in other districts of the city, all right? And we'll have a brand new YMCA with few to limited maintenance issues. Benefits to the City of Homestead, $10 million of a renovation to a beautiful city asset for 20% of the cost. So $2 million is an investment for the city. That payment would not be due until the end of 21 quarter or the first of 2022 quarter, first of those. So there is time for the city. We understand you don't have the budget dollars today, but you've got a year in which to look at that. The request tonight is that we renew the lease with the City of Homestead, that you approve us to sublet to La Jardine to operate a preschool program, and that you, the city, commit $2 million over the next 10 years, beginning in 2021, the end of 2021 budget cycle for all of you. And we would get moving on this project sooner than later. We're on a fast track in order to get this project done because we're very sensitive to the time frame of working with the city, and we want to get this done sooner than later. By it being a city asset, we believe we can fast track that with your help and support once we finish all of the documentation and the lease agreements and turn our architect and design team loose to go get permitting with the city so that we can get this project done. La Jardine would be phase 1, and we'd want to get that done ASAP. They will have the cash available much faster than the rest. Keep in mind, the Y will be going after the loan on this. So we're on the hook for the $10 million loan. Hub of programs, I want to show a few things here. This is your district, and I know in conversations with some of you, you talk to me about, hey, what can you do for my particular district? And I want to share with you that we are committed to bringing water safety drown prevention programs to all over Homestead, including your district. We might ask for access to your parks, to your aquatic center, whatever that might be, but we really want to partner and do more expansive programs around water safety, drown prevention. With tonight's approval, I will work real hard to develop a partnership with a local hospital or healthcare provider so that we can bring additional health and wellness programs to this community in need. In addition to that, those programs will include diet, nutrition, education, job training, financial literacy. Because we have mastered this in Broward County, we want to bring it to Homestead. I know I've talked to many of you about how we can bring health education programs to your particular district, physical activity programs to you for those who can't get to the Y, diet and education nutritional programs to you through a partnership with one of our healthcare providers, which again, we have a record of being able to accomplish. Education and job training, being able to provide job fairs and give others an opportunity to be educated about the jobs that might be available in the community. Financial literacy, because that's a huge issue for many of our communities and our residents. Life safety skills, first aid, CPR, how to teach our families what to do in case of an emergency and to be sure that they can support their family as a whole. And we do that through a health navigation program. So we would go into your community, into your particular district, and provide these as outreach services. Special events, as you know, we're pretty good at all of that, so I'm certain that we could come to your location and be able to provide that in the other districts, using the Y as the central hub for this program and activity to take place. We would ask each of you in your other districts to consider letting us use some of your other community assets in order to bring those programs to your local community. With all that said, I can tell you I'm very proud of the program that we've put together. You can see the design is incredible, and we believe that the City of Homestead and the residents deserve this new Y. I will save questions and answers now to go live, and I do want to acknowledge that I have some of my board members in the audience, as well as La Jardine is here, Eddie and Audie, to show their commitment to this project, and even our banker tied to the new market tax credits. I'm doing everything I can so I can prevent you all from saying no, and instead saying yes to this project. Thank you.
That's the end of the presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Staff have any comments or info that they would like to share with us before we open the discussion?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Council members, questions, comments, concerns?
Mayor, if I may?
Sure, Councilwoman Alva.
Thank you. I just want to start with saying thank you to the presenter. I did get opportunity to discuss this ahead of tonight with her before COVID and before this meeting, and I really appreciate seeing the water safety education. This was one of the items I did ask her about specifically as to whether or not the YMCA offered this, and we did not have it going on in our other parks and pools. So I'm excited to see that. I wanted to ask her, what was it specifically that was keeping the YMCA from being able to offer these services before now?
Great question. Let me just answer by saying thank you for all the positive comments. And we are extremely committed to water safety, drown prevention. Honestly, when you're running a $400,000, $500,000 a year deficit and trying to just manage your current operation, it's hard to do a lot of community outreach work. I believe with the renovation of the building, we will be able to drive the membership into our YMCA, which then gives us the capacity to go do that outreach work. Make sense?
Yes, thank you. And could you clarify what the plan is for the roof and for the exterior? That would be separate from this proposal?
Actually, your structure, your exterior, the walls around your building are all very strong. And the roof has been renovated, replaced, repaired over the many years through CDBG money that the city has invested and or has fixed on their budget. So the roof is actually in a pretty good condition.
Thank you. So it sounds to me like we have a really good skeleton, but what we do need is a facelift.
You do, and all of this would essentially, the plan would be to gut the entire interior of the building minus the walls, and we would then come in with brand new HVAC systems and plumbing and all of the things that go into the renovation of this.
Thank you. And how do you expect this investment to improve the membership rates or the number of memberships that are brought into the YMCA?
Again, great questions. You know, before COVID, we were averaging about 800 membership units at this location. You know, our best used to be about 1,200, of which we had a greater sense of balancing budgets on that. When 24-hour opened, obviously it was a new facility and it drew a lot of our members over to that location. I believe that what the Y offers is family programming and programming for kids and teens, and so it's a one-stop shop compared to what 24-hour can bring. So therefore, do I believe, given the price point we would charge and the fact that we are a family center, that I would believe that a lot of those individuals would come back to the Y, and we would increase the number of members as a whole from the community. Plus all the outreach work that we would be doing, and anytime you partner with a healthcare provider or hospital, it just expands your exposure in the community.
Thank you. Do you have the numbers? Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Do you have the numbers in regards to the memberships and which districts the most of those memberships are coming from?
I don't know that I can pull that. I could pull it based on zip code if your districts are based on zip code, but otherwise I don't know that I could do that.
Okay. And I think you mentioned in conversation, but I may have missed it in the presentation, are we doing any curb appeal upgrades?
We are. The area around the swimming pool, the perimeter actually of the whole building, you know, it's pretty overgrown. There's a large sign out there on the corner as we speak. Our recommendation would be to clean that up, level that down a little bit so that this new facility could be seen from the street and the road. That in itself is drive-by traffic, which would be another way to increase our membership. You know, people want to belong to something new and something clean and something fresh. Our facility in Homestead has not been renovated really since Hurricane Andrew. And so that's a few years ago. So that's why we brought this proposal to you.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. And that was going to be my next question for staff was when was the last time we made an investment to this property? Kate, did you want to add anything to that answer?
Over the years, there's been, as was pointed out, there's been a number of improvements with CDBG money, but a general overhaul other than that, and other than maintenance for which the city was responsible for, there has not been.
Thank you. I'd like to reserve to hear additional comments, but at this point, I am in support of this project, and I believe that it is essential. It's part of the heart of Homestead, and I think it's a small price to pay to invest into this property, which belongs to us, over the period of time that it's being requested. And I think that this is something that benefits my district as well as many other, as well as all the districts in our city. And to hear about the additional outreach that will be part of this is very encouraging. I'll reserve for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council members?
Mayor, if I may,
Sure, Vice Mayor.
I did have a couple of initial questions. $2 million. I'm having a hard time trying to figure out where that money could come from. So we really have to talk about that. Additionally, will the membership dues increase as a result of this if you move forward in the property?
That would not be the plan because I think the city of Homestead has a demographic that we've got to be very sensitive to the price structure. So no, we would go for volume.
So in order to move forward with Laser Dean, who I believe is a phenomenal operator as it relates to early childhood learning, in order for you to proceed with subleasing from them, you need $2 million from the city.
It is, the answer is yes. It is a $10 million renovation of the entire property. I believe, and the team believes, that we have bundled together a solution that would cost the city minimal compared to what would happen to that facility if the Y were not involved. And it went back to the city. You're going to have to do something with that property at some point.
So you said that your team came up with the solution for the city, and the solution is $2 million.
Now, the solution was a $10 million plan to present to the city. Putting together, first of all, I've got Nelson Black on the phone, who is essentially our banker who would facilitate the new market tax credit. Nelson, may I ask that you speak and show the support for a project like this?
Well, before you bring Nelson on, so you're understand that you're applying for a new market tax credit, and the city of Homestead, we've been down that road as well, but that money is not guaranteed, and it's a very, very difficult process. So how do you know you're going to actually receive that funding?
Well, first of all, we have gone through the new market tax credit application process in Broward and with the city of Fort Lauderdale on a project in what's known as the 33311 zip code, which is probably one of the more despairing communities of Fort Lauderdale and of Broward County. We received about a $4 million new market tax credit funding for that project on a $20 million project. I don't want to speak for Nelson. I'd love Nelson to have that opportunity, Vice Mayor, but I honestly, there is a tremendous amount of interest with the funding source for the city and the community of Homestead. It aligns perfectly for funding. Although no guarantee, timing is important. We've got to go through the application process, which I'm pretty sure the timeline on that would also be somewhere around March, April of next year. And as I mentioned in my presentation, if we did not get that, the Y would be on the hook for those dollars.
So if you would like Nelson to chime in, he may just very briefly, we are familiar with new market tax credit, so he doesn't have to get into the weeds of that. But if he wants to speak specifically about the quality of this application and I guess what the prospects are for receiving these dollars, he may, very briefly and specifically.
Sure. This is Nelson Black. I'm the Chief Lending Officer for the Florida Community Loan Fund, and we have provided about $300 million worth of tax credits to 29 projects around the state of Florida, including in Miami-Dade, and including we were the primary provider of tax credits to the YMCA's project on Sistrunk Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. We are interested in the Y project in Homestead because we have looked at other projects in the Homestead area before and have been interested in in what we could do down there, but also because our experience with this YMCA of South Florida has proven to us that the Y is a good steward of this kind of tax credit funding. We have very high standards. You will see projects we've done around the state that serve thousands of people. Community health centers like Jesse Trice Community Health Systems in Miami-Dade, Lotus Village, one of the largest homeless facilities in the country for women and children, Camilla's House, the Wexford Science and Technology Building, and projects in other parts of Florida. So we've been doing this for a while, and we know what a good project looks like. And our primary concern as a nonprofit community development financial institution is impact in the community. And one thing that is different about the South Florida Y from other YMCAs that we've looked at is their concern for low-income persons and families within the community. This project is in a low-income, actually distressed census tract, meets all the geographic criteria as well as some secondary criteria for qualifying for new markets. And we, the Loan Fund, have been pursuing the Y about this project. I would say we have been far more aggressive, if you will, in pursuing this project because we feel that the Y brings some special qualities to the kinds of projects they do. It is in what we consider our priority pipeline. We have about $100 million worth of projects that we have lined up for our priority, and is probably sits at or near the top of that list. Probably all I need to say. As you say, there are very, very tall weeds when you get into the details of new markets. Oh, I should add one more thing. We are preparing a letter of interest right now and I would, had I realized that I'd be on tap tonight, we'd have already written this letter of interest for the project. But we'll have that within the next probably 48 hours.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, Ms. Woods, earlier in your presentation, you had mentioned that the Y has been operating in a deficit position of about, what, $400 and something thousand you referenced?
Yes.
Can you explain why you have been operating in a deficit for almost $500,000 every month?
Every year. Well, that's not a normal business model that we have, but we have been committed to this community for years. I believe that a few things. Number one, it's been a very old and tired building, all right? The dollars, we have, in addition to running this deficit, we've probably put another $100,000 a year into just putting the Band-Aids on the broken leg of this building, right? It needed a greater renovation. You know, you can't put a Band-Aid on a broken leg. If you look at our membership satisfaction survey that we do in all of our locations, facility was the number one reason complaints that we had, and also why people left. In addition to that, I will tell you it's been extremely difficult to hire a staff person to go into the Homestead operation when that building has not been attractive. Now, granted, there's a tremendous spirit in that building, or we wouldn't have had 800 membership units. I think that the Y comes with a tremendous brand and an understanding. All it needs now is a facelift. I might mention, too, that prior to COVID, when we first had our conversation, the city had set aside about $175,000 of CDBG money to go into the renovation of the locker room. the Y's responsibility for that was to match that 175. So we were going to put $350,000 in the renovation of a locker room, primarily air conditioning, and reducing the size of that footprint of the locker room. That's when we as a team said, no, we don't want to do that. That's not a good use of the city's money and or the Y staff's money. Why don't we put a master plan together, present it to the city and say, can you hold on to that $175,000 of CBDG money and use it towards your first payment of a capital renovation? And Vice Mayor, I am extremely sensitive to financial hardships even of every city, especially because of COVID. I've just been trying to bring a solution that I think is probably one of the more financially solvent solutions versus just bringing you back a problem and saying the Y has to fold and move away. I wanted to bring you a solution, by working with La Jardine and saying, look, we don't need to run the preschool. Let's let La Jardine run the preschool. And as you mentioned, they are outstanding at this. And they have access to federal funding to do some of the work that they do. So we're crazy not to bundle together as a team some type of partnership and collaboration that, one, financially gets us a brand new facility to serve the community, and two, programs and services that can be expanded from throughout the city. So I'm very sensitive to it. I'm sorry that COVID, hit all of us, but I think it's a wonderful plan to move forward. And I understand it's hard to look beyond a year from now or even tomorrow. But if we just take that view a little further out, I believe it's beneficial. But I'm biased.
Understood. I'm just trying to process this. I know our council, we've had some very crucial conversations regarding the budget cycle as it relates to committing to body cameras for our community. So I'm sure there will be some reservations about a $2 million commitment for this partnership. My follow-up question is, when we met, and I mentioned my reservations about the funding and where the money will come from, you kind of had some ideas for council to entertain in order to help with the funding outside of $2 million. So can you just share some of those creative ideas that you had come up with?
Sure. Well, I think obviously bringing La Jardine to the table is probably one of the best creative ones, right? Number two, I do believe if we can work together and find a health partner to come to the table and also provide some resources in community programming. I think if I didn't speak to all of you, I tried to speak to all of you about, can we introduce me to some people within the Homestead, Florida City community that can benefit so that we could possibly ask for donations and naming opportunities in different parts of this building. I know the city runs its own utility program. I wasn't sure if there's a way that this was very creative. But, we spend probably $150,000, $175,000 a year in electricity. And if that could be waived in lieu of a capital payment, that would be another creative approach. Not knowing the city policies and guidelines for those things, I don't know that, but it is a city building. All right. At the end of the day, I think it's, we have a wonderful relationship with the Ocean Reef Foundation. I've been on the phone with them. They're probably not in a position to make a capital investment today because of their other obligations. But I can tell you that they asked me, let me know how your meeting goes on the 13th. And so I think it would be a full court press identifying some potential people. It's not easy and there's no guarantee. But Vice Mayor, I'm hopeful that,
again, it's all relative, right? I believe that the CDBG money that has been set aside covers year one. So we have 9 years to go. And that first payment would not be really committed from the city until calendar year Q4 of 21 or the first of the calendar year 22. So, you know, there is time, not that life is going to, money's going to fall out of the trees and the city's going to not have funding issues.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Fletcher?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions for staff. Being that this is a city-owned building, how did it fall off our radar for any potential future capital improvement initiatives?
I don't think it's on the radar, Councilman. I don't know that the city was obligated to make capital improvements at that facility pursuant to the agreements that we've had with the Y over the years.
It just seems a little odd that it's a city-owned facility. Yes, we had a long-term lease with a end user, but I would think that somewhere in the line we would have had some type of capital improvement plan. But here or there, hearing that going forward, I know we've already approved capital improvement plans for, or we have a capital improvement plan that looks out 5 years. Are there any potential offsets or underruns through efficiencies that we might gain that might help offset some of this potential cost if we decide to move forward with this?
Councilman, I'm not sure if you're asking if there are capital improvement projects we have scheduled that we could put aside and have that money in lieu of doing that project. Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm just wondering if, as we look at some of these projects and we identify efficiencies in these projects that might save us, a little bit of money here or there, that we have some of that funding available to offset this potential cost if we decide to move that route. Again, looking at our budgets, we were able to identify some additional funding for body cameras and police officers by tightening our belts. I'm just looking, as we continue to move forward, as we get new things coming up in the city with new businesses, et cetera, that we start looking at, putting that money to the side to look for capital improvements on some of these things. But, as we negotiate with some of these vendors that we're moving forward with on some of our other projects, that we look to squeeze them a little bit too, to sharpen their pencils to ensure we're getting the best deal for the city. And with that, we're saving some of those funds off the side that might help capture some of these overruns. That's all I'm saying, Ms. Manager.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher.
One additional question, or I need to tell Ms. Woods, I'm sorry, I've been neglecting my duties to you. I said I was going to do something, and I haven't made it to that point yet. I promise you that will happen by the end of this week, and I will get back in contact with you in regards to our conversation.
Councilman, thank you. I totally understand. But I welcome you being my hero.
Well, I'm not here to be anybody's hero. I'm just here to try to do the best for the city. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Woods, or Mike, and we've had a couple conversations, a couple phone calls, a couple of Zoom-type calls as the pandemic has progressed, and kind of the concepts here have changed a little bit. But jump in and correct me where you don't think my thinking is on point, because it's a long walk off a short pier, I guess. The first thing you need is a lease with a new lease with the city that commits the Y to operate within certain numbered buildings and allows the Y to sublease other specifically identified buildings to Leigh Hardin. And built into the Leigh Hardin lease with the Y is an obligation to do I think the number is $3 million of renovations to those identified buildings. Or a certain number, multi-million-dollar number of renovations and upgrades to the buildings it will use, and also provides for lease payments. And that stream of lease payments will allow the Y to go out and borrow money to fund its capital improvements, together with a potential new market tax credit loan, potential philanthropy, and the final piece, in my view, would be that $200,000 a year, more or less, from the city of Homestead, which would be conditioned upon all of those other funding sources being lined up. We would be the last piece of that puzzle. But here's where I'm kind of getting hung up on something, the devil in the details. So if we go forward with that tonight and enter into a lease that, in its simplest form, allows you to sublease to another entity and at some point in the future begin collecting lease payments in order to qualify to borrow money to do your improvements. And I don't have a full form lease here. I've just got a basic term sheet. I would think implicit in this is that we being the city, would have to have some obligation from the Y as to a beginning of its renovation, beginning date, outside date for its renovations, and an outside date for its reopening of its wonderful new operations within a smaller footprint. But then my question then becomes, okay, if you can't borrow the money or you can't meet those time frames, the city's got to have the ability to step in, declare you in default, and stand in the shoes of the Y and collect the lease payments from Leigh Hardin, and in theory apply them to our own renovation of the building. Is that fairly accurate, to this point? Is that a fair assessment of where we are or where we really need to be to have this discussion?
Yes, all of that language can be put into the lease agreement. That, number one, I think we're all going to debate whether it's the chicken or the egg, right? For La Jardine and the YMCA, it's critical that the city makes its commitment. If the city doesn't make its commitment, then I know that La Jardine, I can't speak for them. I know Eddie and Audie are on the call. I'm not sure that they can speak, but I know they're on this call.
Which commitment? The $2 million?
Yes.
Well, okay, that's fine, but clearly that $2 million would have to be conditioned upon all of their other funding mechanisms.
Absolutely. That's why I said it's the chicken or the egg, because all of this has to kind of all come together about the same time, which we believe would be March, April of next year. And if all of the parties don't pull their own weight on this collaboration, then it would give all parties the option not to move forward.
Okay. Now, when you and I spoke, and I've spoken to our management about this, speaking of putting the chicken before the egg or the cart before the horse, I don't know that we have a determination yet that this proposed use with Leigh Hardin is permitted under some of the deeds that were given from the county to the city to convey this parkland as parkland. And I believe that there are reverters in place and use restrictions in place. And before we get too far down the road with this conversation, we need to know that we're not going to have the county or some great-grandchild of a prior owner of a piece of this park show up and say, hey, no, you've got to give it back. We don't want to get into the Matheson family type stuff. So understand that this is all great to talk about in concept, but that's something I really think we need to have a determination on sooner rather than later. Now, if you were tuned into our budget discussions, and I'm sure you weren't, but if you were, you would know that the city subsidizes the Seminole Theater to the tune of about $300,000 a year, $275,000 a year, by absorbing the cost of trash, garbage, water, sewer, and electricity as part of its contribution, in addition to cash. And I made no secret of the fact that, you know, in the coming years, that entity needs to become more self-sufficient. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at that same type of partial in-kind funding to the Y. And I think you threw out a number of about $175,000 a year. Was that number for the buildings that are going to be taken over and the responsibility of Le Jardin, or are those the Y buildings that will come out of this transaction alone?
That would be the entire footprint, both.
Okay, because, you know, it would be interesting because they're all separately metered, correct?
Yes.
So we could go back, you know, and a way to get to that $200,000 a year for 10 years could potentially be a waiver of the anticipated, or the absorption by the city, I shouldn't say waiver, absorption by the city of those utility charges incurred, or which would have been incurred by the buildings to be utilized by the Y. That is certainly a potential, and you and I had that conversation, but we would need to know those numbers and perhaps a little bit of cash on top of that. I mean, look, I hate to use the word squeeze, but you know what I mean. We just increased the contract that's going to produce money back to our CRA from $2,075,000 to $2,750,000. You know, we gained $750,000 in theory to the CRA tonight. So I'm cautiously optimistic about some of our future pots of money. But I really think the first thing we need to do is determine whether or not Le Jardin would even be a permitted use on that site. Now, having said that, you know, I could support going forward and, you know, conditioned upon all of those legal determinations, allow the entry, support a new lease between the city and the YMCA that allows you to sublease to the Y. But there's got to be some hard and fast drop dead dates in that lease that provide that if the Y doesn't hold up its end of the bargain, I'm sure Le Jardin will. Right? You know, different funding source, different types of operation. So, you know, not disparaging the Y, but they're probably going to have their $100 bills flowing faster than you can. But there's got to be, in my mind, some drop dead date that we're going to have to bite the bullet and step in and collect those payments and figure out what to do with the rest of the building. And one final thought, and I say this to you as well as some of my council colleagues. You started out the conversation tonight by talking about our districts. And I'm concerned. It's disconcerting to me now that it seems we're playing one segment of the city against the other. And I would clarify to you and remind some of my colleagues who are newer to this dais that we all are responsible to everybody and represent everybody and shouldn't be looking at a deal as to what it's going to do for the residential area from which we are elected. So, you know, I don't want to hear any more whiffs of, well, I got my piece of the action over here in my district, so I'm willing to sell out the rest of the city for something that I can beat on my chest about and say, look what I did for my residential area C. Please do not get sucked into that argument and that mentality. We are one Homestead, not 6 districts and a mayor. But
Yeah, Mayor Lossard, let me,
I'll get off my soapbox on that and say, let's get the determination as to whether or not Le Jardin is even a permitted use. And, you know, conceptually agree or not agree to go forward, but, you know, that would be, I think, probably the next thing we need to look at.
Mayor, if I may make a couple real quick comments. Number one, if I spoke and gave you the impression that anyone was necessarily lobbying, if there was any lobbying, it was because the Y provides amazing outreach programs. And I think every council member that I talked to always spoke about the general city of Homestead. None of them really asked for anything in particular. It was just a level of excitement saying, oh my gosh, I wish we could have a Y in my section of the community. And I said, we can just bring those programs and services to you. I do think, you know, Kate, I don't know the answer regarding the Le Jardin and the county and all of the other conversation there, but I know the Y has been operating that preschool for many, many, many years, and it has been licensed as a preschool. So another provider coming in to lease that space, I would hope would be acceptable.
Right. I know that our legal department has looked into this matter. I'm not sure if it's been sufficiently vetted to answer the mayor's concern, but I know that we have done some background work to try to determine that. But I don't know, Matt, if you want to add anything to that, but we are certainly looking at that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, I didn't want to cut anybody off. We had done a deed search. We didn't see anything initially that prevented the child care. Child care has been use on the property for quite some time. You know, I think it's consistent with the current zoning. We have the flexibility to do it, but we will firm everything up before we bring a final agreement back to you. It's one of many things that we'll pin down before we brought something back if you elect to direct us to move forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pearl.
Mayor, if I may?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank you for the kind reminder. I always encourage that, so I appreciate it. And as the newest member of the council, I do want to share that the majority of my support for this item specifically is related to the services that the YMCA is going to be able to provide in this site as well as throughout the community through the outreach. The facilities that are inside of my district are in gated communities where we have beautiful clubhouses with swimming pools and gyms. So when it comes to the capital improvements, I'll have to admit that my constituents in the district of District 5 have those resources, thankfully. However, thinking of the rest of the city and thinking of the southwest section and thinking of Roby George Park, where a lot of the residents in the city attend for swimming classes that I hope will be able to continue, this will be an excellent option for those families to receive swimming lessons, especially considering the racial and diversity action plan that we are working on as a council. The YMCA is a part of that plan for health and wellness, which I am focusing on. So that is where my bulk of my support is coming from. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Councilman Shelley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I've always been a big supporter of the Y. You know, one of my first couple projects I worked on, my first couple of years on council was helping the executive director, the new one at the time, you know, reintegrate the YMCA into the community and kind of rebuild their brand and start really working toward providing those services that, you know, we're all talking about now, but ultimately we're talking about, you know, I think this is almost 10 years ago, soon after I was elected. And, you know, and they made great strides, the Y did, back during that time period. That executive director was very motivated, and he unfortunately moved up the food chain very quickly as a result of his efforts and his abilities and, you know, the things that he was doing, the great things he was doing for the city of Homestead as they were starting to finally move and reintegrate here and the YMCA providing services. You know, and then since that time, unfortunately, there's been turnover, significant turnover at the executive director level. of the local YMCA, and that's really hindered its ability to maybe perform its task and its goals and continue the progress that was being made early on. And that's one of the concerns that I have is that the services that have been being provided by the Y have not necessarily been up to the level that I think we all wanted it to become, and that's been one of the biggest issues, I think I'd say over the last probably 4+ years, 5 years now, has been the changeover at that level, and as a result, the inability to move those programs forward, to continue the fundraising, and some of the other things, the services that I wanted to see the Y be able to provide. And so I don't know that anything that changes necessarily because we're able to invest these monies. And so part of my concern is you have the operations of the Y as it currently exists in the building. And yes, I think facility-wise, it does limit their ability to potentially, maybe recruit the talent that they want and ultimately provide those services that the people will pay for, which will help their revenues and help them reinvest. But I know also 10 years ago, we were renegotiating this particular lease that's in place now. One of the requests by the council at that time was to have the YMCA invest in the city of Homestead's building to bring that building up to speed and to get it where we wanted it to be. If you look at all the YMCA buildings across the county, they were all brand new. The YMCA was investing lots of money into other cities and other areas to build beautiful brand new YMCA buildings, and the city of Homestead wanted that for us. We wanted the same quality, and so part of the lease agreement that we had with them was that they would invest, since they were not paying rent, that they would invest a capital asset improvement on an annualized basis, which is where I think that $150,000 or so came from. Was that was a negotiated idea of having them help to bring the building up to a more beautiful standard and provide better quality services to the residents. And so that was one of the things we had hoped to accomplish. But again, based on some of the things that were occurring, that wasn't playing out. So my big issue, I think, here is, I want to maintain our partnership with the Y. I want to see the Y provide those services to the community that I think we all want them to provide. But I start to have real hesitancy with putting an additional $2 million in as capital assets into the building, given the track record of where we currently are, and also knowing that, we just spent, 4 or 5 meetings, trying to find dollars to fund, body cameras or police officers, and staff worked a miracle. I mean, our staff worked a complete miracle in order to find the dollars that we needed, and so to come up with another, $200,000 a year, $2 million over 10 years as a commitment, becomes difficult for me to do where we stand now, and so part of me thinks that if we're going to start looking about investing dollars in the building and subsidizing these programs and organizations more than we already are, should we at this point look at what other options are out there to provide similar services? And the answer may be nothing. We may do an RFP and find out that, our best partner in this is in fact the YMCA, but at the same time, it's hard for me to make that decision today in a vacuum and say that, okay, I'm going to stick with what I have, knowing that what I have unfortunately has not been successful, has not been at the level that I want it to be or that the city probably wants it to be. And then I'm going to invest dollars that I currently don't have and may not have in the future into the building. And so those become, kind of difficult decisions, for me to make. At the same time, we could directly lease potentially to Les Jardins and then ultimately use those dollars from Les Jardins to improve the building, to then rent that building back out, either back to the Y or potentially to some other operator, because we would need those rent dollars to cover our operational expenses. We could use those directly into capital asset improvements to possibly get that building in a more inhabitable form for potentially the YMCA in the future or some other tenant. So that's kind of where I am at this point. Again, I'm supportive, always have been supportive of the Y. This is very difficult for me, decision-making process, but factually with what I have before me, I would have a hard time supporting the existing request with, the information that I have before me at this time. So that's where I am at this stage. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Shelley.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
Okay, a couple things that you mentioned that I'd like to address is, number one, you're right, Councilman, the Miami YMCA did not have any capital dollars. As a matter of fact, if it weren't for about 5-6 years ago, had they not merged with Broward County and we become one, I'm not sure what would have happened to the YMCA in Miami. All right, so I will say that by merging those two operations, we became a stronger institution. All right. Secondly, all of those programs, those locations that were new and or expanding were really a result of collaborations and partnerships with other cities and municipalities. All right. In some cases, we've been lucky to better utilize city properties in some of the cities, whether it's Pembroke Pines, whether it's Hallandale Beach, whether it's the city of Weston. All of those cities have brought significant resources to this collaboration. That's what's made this work. In addition to that, the WISE brand and our ability and you know, Councilman, I wasn't here 10 years ago. I can be held accountable for probably the last 5 years. And I can tell you that the merger and trying to get Miami stable was my number one priority. As we had the opportunity to open some other operations in Broward because of the collaborative work that we did. It's now that we've finally said, you know, even my board said, enough is enough. We've got to do something with Homestead. We've got to make this a priority in 2020. So it was on my board's agenda too. I think I'm very passionate about your concerns because the Y brand and Cheryl Woods' brand is pretty important. As far as a leader in this organization, and I know what we're capable of doing. And if you consult with some of our other cities, I'm pretty sure you'd hear some positive feedback, as well as some of the people that we've partnered with and our ability to work with banks for funding, like the new market tax credit team. I might just make this comment. If the Y is not there, okay, I mean, I do believe we're one organization that serves a very inclusive, diverse population, from economics to age groups to just overall diversity of a community. There aren't too many. Boys and Girls Club, they focus on boys and girls. There aren't too many people that look at wellness, aquatics, childcare, sports, seniors, health and wellness as comprehensively as the YMCA. I don't know, this building is going to cost the city money regardless, all right? If you know, the Y, we cannot continue to operate in a deficit position. We have not opened that branch since COVID, and we're still on the hook for about $30,000 a month. That's why we have brought this to the City Commission tonight, City Council, to get direction for both the staff and the YMCA, which in turn goes to my board. I promise you that building and that land will be an expense to you at some point. And the question is as you look at programs and services, the WISE brand, and the Y bringing to the table a $10 million renovative plan in which we're only asking the city for $2 million. I understand we don't have $2 million. Okay, I understand that. Nor does the Y really have all of its dollars, but it's a matter of us being committed to this project.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I just want to clarify to make sure that I in no way imply that the Y, you know, I hope my comments didn't come out that I didn't think the Y was a great program. Because I've been a big supporter. I'm still a big supporter of the Y.
Yes, you have.
The Y, the overall organization of the Y, I'm not questioning. My concern and my comments were limited to the local Y, which again, I don't think is a fault of the Y organization per se. I think it's a fault of, you know, the executive directors and the revolving door executive directors that have come through, and knowing that that's not something you can control. As you hire an employee, some employees are great, some employees are not so good, some are dedicated to the mission, and some abandon the mission. And so I understand the challenges that you guys have faced in trying to help provide the services that you want to provide at the Homestead Y. It just hasn't actually come to fruition. And again, I'm not saying that it's anyone's fault here because I think it's a circumstance. So I just want to be sure that's clear so you guys don't take it as any type of negative comment on the organization, because that's not what it was intended. But the reality is the local Y has not performed, and that's a concern. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Karen?
Yes. That's you, Councilman Roth? Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I too am a fan and a supporter of the Y. I've sat on their local board here for probably the last 3 years, and I look at this from a different perspective. I know I've had conversations with Mrs. Woods, and I was very disappointed in the support that this Y got from corporate YMCA. The lack of their ability to invest into a building that they lease from the city that they have no expense to the city on except for utilities. They pay no rent there. And I think one of my questions would be to the board here is that the best use for that property? It may cost us a little bit of money, but if we're able to turn this property into a property that would generate revenues for the city versus costing the city revenues, would that be a better use for it? The WISE programming is great. The Swim for Jenny program is great. If I were to go forward with this, I would like to see some free programming for the community versus paid programming, because almost everything there is paid for, especially if we're going to invest city dollars, taxpayer dollars into a program, to the Y. It saddens me that it's come to this point where we're being forced to make a decision. Do we want to save a particular business in our city, or can we rethink this property and do something different with it? It's sad. It's very sad that we're at this point now. And, I've been in that building many, many times, and I don't know what the lease says as far as what the Y's responsibility for upkeep and maintenance on the inside, the modernization, counters and aesthetics and things like that. But I just wonder out loud, is there a different, a better use for that property than what is there now? The programming, yes, I mean, the community needs it, but as one of my colleagues stated, we spent 5 meetings figuring out how to pay for additional police officers and body cams, which was also a need in the city. How do we come up with the extra, $200,000 a year? But the investment in the capital improvements that the Y is committing to is virtually, nothing compared to what they're asking from the city, and especially what Les Jardins is committing to putting into this collaboration of people. There's a lot of questions. I don't know. The mayor brought up some good points about deed restrictions and how we ended up with the property and what is allowable, what's not allowable. Can we use it for something else? Can it be used to generate funds, or is it specific to community needs? I don't know the answers to those questions. So I still think there's some questions to be answered. One, maybe even asking the city staff. I mean, do you see another $200,000 a year coming out of our budget, and where would it come from? I mean, I don't expect you to answer that tonight, but that's a question. I mean, I would love for the Y to be here. I committed time to it. I volunteered for it. When they had their runs and their dog programs, I was out there with them, participated in them. And, it's just sad that it's come to this. And I don't think it's neglect on the city's part. I just think this whole thing is sad. So I still think I need more information. I need to know where, what we can do with that property if the Y decided to pull out, if in 3, 4, 5 months they figure out they can't get the funding, the building will sit there for another 3 or 4 or 5 months deteriorating. I'd like to have a little bit more time to get some more of that information so that I understand that if we commit partnering with the Y, $200,000 a year for 10 years, is that the right investment, for that money? With that, I'll rest, Mayor, and listen for more comments, but that's just how I feel about it right now.
Thank you. And, I'm looking back at the agenda item. This is really here for a presentation by the Y and the very discussions we're having. I don't know that there's really anything before us tonight to take a vote on. And if staff or the attorneys or even the representative of the Y feels differently, I think we need to know that now.
Well, go ahead, Kate. Sorry, thank you. We were looking for direction with respect to the proposed terms of an agreement with the Y, and if we were to go forward with that.
And Mayor, the Y, a few things. The Y is looking for direction because we too have to make a decision. And Councilman Roth, I want you to know that I don't see this as a sad situation. I see it as a very opportunistic one. I see it as a solution that I wish could have been brought to the City Council years ago, all right? But it hasn't been, and we're in the middle of COVID right now, and yet we're bringing a solution to the council that I happen to think is a very viable one. I also want to mention that if the Y signs a lease for 20 years, and we project that the annual operating budget of this is anywhere from $1.2 to $1.5 million a year in operational costs, meaning the Y is responsible for all operational costs of this building. That is a $30 million commitment. In addition, when we say what else is the Y going to do, the Y is going to provide, which we have in many years, by keeping the price point low and making sure that we financially provide financial assistance to this community. You're looking at another $100,000 to $150,000 a year of subsidy that the Y is committing to by being in Homestead. All right. Now, from a pure business standpoint, okay, the Y cannot afford to be in Homestead unless we make this partnership happen. And Mayor, I know that there's not a real action item on the table, but there is, because it has to be about the spirit of this council and staff, whether we're going to move this project forward, whether we're going to move the partnerships forward. If there's not an interest to do that, understanding there's a lot of homework. We got a lot of work to do in the next 2, 3, 4 months. And it's all contingent on, number one, we're going after new market tax credits. I know, Nelson, we've got a deadline on that. It's our deadline. We could put it off for another year, but why would we want to do that? Why would we want to do that when we have an opportunity to go after new market tax credits now? Secondly, the Y's already been working with our local banks to ensure that we have the capacity to take on that additional debt. That additional debt is approved by the budget because we can bring to the table all of these partnerships. So it's chicken and egg again. Lajardine is an amazing partner. Lajardine has additional ability to go after funding because of the Y partnership. And I'm real sad that Eddie or Audie cannot speak on this point, because I do believe that they would tell you that partnering with the Y would be a huge home run for their operation and their ability to do some additional creative work with their families. So, I see it as, we're taking a crisis situation and we're turning it into something that's very positive for the city of Homestead. So, Councilman Roth, in all due respect, I promise you, I don't think it's a sad thing. I think it's the right time at the right place, and we're just seizing the day. And bringing an incredible project back to the table, knowing that I understand $2 million is a lot to commit, but we got to look beyond just the next year or two.
Cheryl, this is Nelson Black. If I could just add something, and just to put an exclamation point on the first thing that you said, The money that is being pledged by the city and various other entities is coming in over time, but the Y is borrowing this money now. And as a result of these pledges, including new market tax credits, the Y can build this project now rather than waiting for several years while funds are raised or other ideas are tried. This could be done soon, but the Y's commitment to this is that it is going to have to borrow this money up front. So it is not true that the Y is bringing nothing to the table. It is going to have to bring its financial capacity and its debt, its ability to service debt in advance of the project being built. I just thought it would be helpful to understand that.
Mayor, may I?
Sure, Councilman Ross.
Okay, yeah, I understand that part of it, but the Y is borrowing money on future money that they're going to be receiving through a lease payment. So yes, they are borrowing money, but that money's going to be quote unquote guaranteed by a lease payment. So I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm not trying to argue the point with you. Excuse me?
That is not exactly true. The Y is going to have, its financial capacity is made up of a number of things, including that lease payments. Its fundraising capacity and a variety of other things are what go into its ability to borrow.
Sure. So let me ask this question. In new market tax credits, why only $1 million? Why not $5 million?
Muted myself. The $1 million is the benefit that the Y is projecting will occur. The actual allocation of tax credits depends on the size of the project. At a $10 million project, their net benefit, they believe, is about $1 million. So that's the equity provided, but the rest of the money is borrowed. But in order to get that $1 million in equity, you receive, or I should say, we provide an allocation to an investor of, let's say, in this case, $10 million.
Right. I understand the new market tax credit thing. You through that much more than I wanted to for a project that we did here in the city. You know, I don't want to debate this. Listen, I have a passion for the Y, and there's no question. I still think the situation that is allowed itself to get into here in the city is sad. They could have taken more preventative actions in order to keep that property in a much better condition that it was. They claim they were losing money. Okay, that may be so. I don't personally. The commitment from the Miami part of this, the corporate part of this, with staffing, with giving the staff the amenities that they needed, the facility that they needed. If I'm not mistaken, the Y's they've occupied this property from the very beginning, and I'm assuming that it didn't look like this at the very beginning when they took over this property. Although the locker room situation was bad, but there was no attempts by the Y to correct those situations. The equipment in that facility, every time that the equipment broke down, they wouldn't buy new equipment. They would bring in equipment from another facility that was used already. So there was not a lot of attention brought in to this Y. And it's hard for me to say, yes, I want to give you $200,000 a year, you know, when I didn't see the commitment prior to this. So it is sad to me that it's come to this state. And there's only one entity to blame, and that would be the Y for allowing this property to deteriorate in the way that it did. I'm not saying I'm against this, but show me how it's going to be different with the investment that we are making on behalf of the taxpayers. Mayor, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman Rock, please remember that when you're running a $400,000 to $500,000 deficit, it's pretty tough to find those additional dollars. All right. And I'm sorry that that building didn't get the love and attention it needed, which is why we sat down and made this a priority. And we made it a priority prior to COVID. You know, I believe, you know, we have too great of a reputation in South Florida. That reputation just needs to be brought to Homestead, and we need to show you what the Y is made of. And I'm sorry that over the years, we might have done that on behalf of all my fellow colleagues programmatically, but you know what? We can be so much better. I guarantee that. We've got proof to do that. And Mayor, we do need direction. We absolutely need direction for both the city staff and the Y.
Sure.
Thank you. I just had a couple things that I wanted to say. You know, I definitely see the benefit of us updating one of our own buildings. I think this is a landmark building for us. I also see the benefit of assisting the Y in bringing a higher quality of health and wellness to our residents. But of course, there's the concern of committing to this amount of money. The renovations definitely need to happen. I was a member for a little while, and with all these other gyms and everything coming up, it looks like a landmark building. I also have to say that I recognize the impact that the Y has, not necessarily in Homestead, but doing research, seeing how their outreach programs have benefited other cities. I think that's something that we definitely need to take into account. The water safety for us especially is important. Regarding the preschool, I know that that's also a very big need in our area. Les Jardins is one of the few that offers a quality Head Start program. And for our residents, you know, I have a preschool, and I can't tell you how many calls a day I get asking if we are a Head Start program. And Les Jardins is one of the few that I recommend without hesitation. I'm curious if we could qualify for any grant opportunities, being that it's a health and wellness location. That's one thing that I wanted to mention. And the second thing was that I know we used to have a benefit program for our city employees to be members of a gym that has since closed. Could that be something that we discuss? It's definitely a benefit for our employees, that we want to make sure that they are staying healthy. I think that's all that I have for now. If we can figure out where that money would come from after that first year, I think that this is something that I would like to see continue, just because of it being, for me, it's a landmark. I think that having a YMCA is incredibly beneficial, and the discussions that we had about those programs that we desperately need in all areas of our city, I really see the potential in that. So that's all I have for now, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Fletcher?
Yeah, sorry, just a couple of other questions. First, how did we get to the $10 million valuation of the project cost? Was that based off of known costs, or a complete set?
Yeah, Mark Russell is our CFO. He's on this call too, so he can help answer this. But when we sat down with Les Jardins and our architect and we put this together, our architect then went out to a local builder and gave him some drawings of this project, and we received what we would consider some pretty reliable line item by line item costs. So that's where the 10 million. We did not arbitrarily choose that. We actually have some backup on that.
Okay, because, I look at it, $10 million, at a 53,000 square foot facility, you're looking at about $188 a square foot for renovation.
Correct.
It seems a little high to me, but I've been out of that for a while. And I would be remiss in just saying I've asked the city staff to sharpen their pencils. Let's take a look at the numbers you have as well and ensure we're sharpening our pencils so we're getting the best deal possible so we understand what those true numbers are. Estimates, to me, that's an estimate. People shoot off the hip all the time with estimates. Until we can get some good quality numbers on paper, it's hard to move forward and make a decision like this, especially in the current times we're in. Like everyone else, we've all supported the wild years, but at the same time, I can't go to my resident and say, hey, we're gonna need $200,000 more a year out of your coffers to help subsidize building in the city that we continue to do over and over and over. I do have some other ideas, like I said, Ms. Wood, and I'll follow up on those this week, but I don't think I have enough information at this point in time to move forward. With that, I'll refer to my colleagues for further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. And I want to add to that the realization that if we gave direction to move forward to have our attorneys, review or negotiate a lease that would allow for the Lay-Hardin solution, we need to be very clear, to Mr. Roth's point, we're tying up at least a portion of that facility for up to 40 years with a Lay-Hardin lease. And perhaps,
20.
Well, it's got 2 10-year renewals.
Oh, okay.
So, we need to very carefully think about that. I don't think any one of us would question the success and the viability and the need and the contributions that Lay-Hardin has made to this community. But sitting behind the dais, we also need to realize and think about whether or not tying this up for 25%, a time frame that's 25% longer than this building has already been in existence. Beyond that, and thinking out loud, we could tonight ask the attorneys to, give some direction to go ahead and begin sitting down and putting pen to paper for a potential lease with no obligation to ultimately enter into one. But during that interim, that would give us the opportunity to, as Councilman Fletcher said, sharpen our pencils and come up with some different ideas and thoughts as to where, funding could take place if we decided to go down that road. But is it, and that, giving authorization to go negotiate a lease, maybe putting the cart before the proverbial horse tonight, because if we're not on board as to locking that facility into a given use for up to another 40 years, or not able to commit to that $200,000 a year, however it's granted, we're wasting time and attorney's fees on a lease. So, Councilman Fletcher, you may have a point that, this is very analogous to the situation we had with the body cam situation, that we've really got to roll up the sleeves extra high and figure out if it's doable before we authorize moving forward with a lease. And there is time between now and the end of this month to come back by special call if necessary to move forward with this. I understand that the Y at some point has got to stop the bleeding and be in or out of that building. I understand that business aspect of it, but I would tend to agree that based on the lack of some real financial numbers, looking at this and a philosophy of, are we going to lock this in for another 40 years? We may in fact need to come back and revisit this at a meeting later this month.
But Mayor, I would agree with you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman?
Thank you. I agree with you, and I agree with Councilman Roth and Fletcher. I'd be curious to hear from the city manager's office as to any other locations that we could present as an alternative as well. So if we can have some of that information come back to us, I would appreciate it.
All right. Do we have any contrary opinion from council tonight?
Mayor, if I may.
Vice Mayor, yes.
I don't have a contrary opinion. I believe that all of us are, supportive of the why. It's just getting to that $200,000 and we're cash strapped. But as it relates to program, I just want everyone to remind you that we have an underutilized pool at FICA Williams over there at Ruby George Park, where lessons can be taught from there. We have several after-school programs. Leisure Dean has several sites to serve students if they can't potentially utilize this site. And there are other providers that can provide health and wellness and financial literacy in several of our cities throughout the community. So there are paths forward as it relates to services if that was the determining factor in order to enter into agreement with the Y. We do have other options as it relates to services if we can't move forward with this funding piece. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So,
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Shelley?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Vice Mayor's comments. It spurred my memory when I had a meeting with the YMCA a few months back, and that was one of the things that we at least was discussed as a creative idea, is that for some reason we can't come up with financial means to provide them the funding for their particular building, or they determine that because they're operating at a loss because they have to maintain that building, that potentially work with them to use our existing facilities to let them provide those types of social services, maybe utilizing the FICA Williams, the community center, other buildings that are already city owned and which they would occupy in totality or permanently, but they would come in on a certain number of times a week or month to provide these services potentially in some capacity as a means of maybe getting through whatever we're going to until we come up with a long-term solution. So thank you, Vice Mayor, for kind of jogging my memory on that, because I did like that as an option to still allow the Y to service our community, but not to potentially have the burden of that building on them or on us, and ultimately, maybe save them some costs so they're no longer operating at a deficit. So that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, and the presenter is right to a certain extent that building is going to be our burden until we figure out what happens there, if not the why. But I get what you're saying. Not to the extent that's proposed anyway, and not for the time frame.
Mayor, I might mention too that, and I appreciate all the support that this council has given us over the years. Can we do programs? Possibly. Our business model in the YMCA is a membership model. Without having a facility and operating a membership model, it is very, very difficult financially to do outreach programs. For every program that we offer, we probably, for $1 that we generate, we probably spend $1.25, $1.50 on that. So what the council is now asking me to do by doing some of those programs, which we can do a few of those, but you are now asking me to continue to run a deficit for the Y of South Florida. And that will be very, very challenging for my board. I truly believe that we have brought forward an incredible opportunity for the city of Homestead. I think that at the end of the day, this is a city asset. This is us providing an improvement. Your $2 million is really a $2 million investment in your own asset. So, I would like to recommend that you give staff, and obviously you can vote on this because I can't make motions, but that you all would ask staff in the Y to continue to flesh out a lease agreement. Keep in mind, none of this can move forward without all of the cards falling in place. All right. Obviously, the new market tax credit, and again, I don't know if Nelson's still on the phone, but there's a window of time in which we can apply for that. Otherwise, we lose the cycle. I mean, you hear his support and commitment. Jardine will have to write a grant that would be specific to a partnership with the YMCA at this particular location, okay? That would change whether they can write that language into the grant or not, which is going to have to be done sooner than later. The YMCA is going to have to, we would probably, if not given this go ahead, the YMCA would probably put our efforts into to other areas that are critical to us right now as an organization, because all of the things that I'm proposing we would do take a tremendous amount of time and commitment. Putting these partnerships, collaborations together, going to the bank and getting all that funding is a tremendous amount. So, Mayor, if we don't have the city's support, the spirit, and or willingness to find solutions and ask staff to come up with those solutions, then it's probably a game changer for all of us. And that's not an ultimatum at all. I mean, obviously, we have been extremely committed to the city of Homestead for a zillion years. I promise you, from my board's perspective, running a $400,000 or a $500,000 deficit each year and still not being able to put money into capital has been significant. So I believe we have committed over many, many years, and now we're bringing forward a solution. So I'm asking the council for that particular direction.
Is there anyone on council who would like to make a motion to that effect?
Mayor,
Councilwoman?
I'll make a motion for this item to be brought back to our next meeting, our council meeting, so that we can sharpen the pencils, as Councilman Fletcher said, and to identify whether or not there is another location that's central. So I do think it's important for the members who are actually paying for their membership have access to the facility, and here have all the answers to the questions that were asked tonight answered. Is that a sufficient motion for the Y?
Well, let me just say that this particular piece of property has all the amenities you could dream of to house a Y and a preschool. It has the ground space, it has a gymnasium, and it has a swimming pool. It is the perfect spot for programming, given a renovation of that building. The suite, every Y that we build, we always say we need, the sweet spot is 35,000 square feet of space, and this is how we carve it up. And every one of them has a gymnasium, a wellness center. It has a whole component to the membership base. Without a gymnasium, without a wellness center, without a swimming pool, it makes that business model more challenging for the Y. Therefore, probably not a smart business move for us. So I would say on behalf of my board and staff that we really need to stay on that property. But thank you for always looking at options.
With that, I'll make that motion, because what I'm hearing from the rest of council is that they don't have enough information to make a decision for direction tonight.
Well, and I would just be concerned as to whether or not we could even have the information compiled between now and time to put it together in an agenda next week. I mean, certainly probably prior to the end of the month, but maybe not be committed to next week.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I agree with you completely with respect to having some of these answers by next week. But even by the end of the month, I'm going to mention some of the things that came up because I'm a little bit unclear in what direction we're taking. Because in addition to the suggestion that another central location might be possible, it sounds like to the Y that's not something that they would agree to. But are we looking at just potential lease terms? Because some of the other things that came up, and Mayor, you mentioned some things like what happens if the Y goes under? Can we actually have the sublease? Is that allowable? We can confirm that. And what happens with the lease money from Les Jardines if the Y goes under? We could address that in lease terms. Drop dead dates in the lease. There was a question about subsidy from electric utilities, which would actually be a hit to the general fund. But some of the other things that were mentioned, someone wants to see free programming. Some want to know what the best use is for the property and what can we do with the property if the Y is not there. And with respect to potential grants, obviously we can look at that. And sharpening our pencils, as you know, are pretty sharp already. And as you mentioned during the budget hearings, we'll continue to look for ways to save money. But what we will not have next week or by the end of the month is a guaranteed revenue source, a repeating revenue source. I mean, we can certainly come with ideas, but again, I'm just a little unclear as what direction we're taking here. Are we just focusing on the lease, or do you also want to know highest and best use, which is a whole nother realm of things? And I just need some clarification.
Council?
If I may.
Sure. Vice Mayor.
I'm having a hard time with this because we need additional police officers. We cut money, program money from the CRA. I don't know where else the money can come from. Talk about sharp pencils. The pencils are broken at this point. There's no more lead in them. I mean, we dealt with this ad nauseum. I just don't know where the money could come from, and I'm hesitant to put staff in that predicament or situation to go squeeze blood from a turnip. I just don't know where the money is. So I don't know if I can give staff direction to go back and try to find anything because there are no more pencils. They're gone. We've used them all. So I'm not sure. I know there are options as it relates to programming, but if we have the money, I support it. So I just don't know where that money can come from. So that's where I am.
Thank you. Well, Vice Mayor, if we are all comfortable with taking the first step of potentially tying up a large portion of that facility for up to 40 years under a sublease with Les Jardines, with those terms that I've raised issues on, and I'm sure others have raised issues on when it's in front of us, we could conceivably go forward with that direction tonight without committing to the city providing any funding at any level.
I can agree to that, ma'am.
Mayor?
That seems to be a first step. Councilor Shelley?
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing, that I don't have any objection to Les Jardines necessarily providing those services. The only, I guess, concern I would raise is that if we decide, or ultimately the Y decides that this is no longer financial, it doesn't make financial sense to them, and they ultimately turn the building back over to us, which I think, maybe where this could head for them, to buying potentially that building up or half of that building up without knowing what the highest and best use might be, or doing an RFP for the entire property to determine what ultimately may be the best use. That would be my only concern. Otherwise, I have no objections to having Les Jardines move forward, because it would provide us a revenue stream that would ultimately pay the cost of that building or to repair that building if the Y, does not, ultimately we're not able to work out a relationship or a continued partnership with the Y. But again, if we do that, we're locking that building down, which would eliminate the ability to potentially put the whole building out for RFP or determining the highest and best use. So that'd be my only concern.
Well, it's either pull the plug on the entire thing right here tonight, or at least take the step toward exploring lease alternatives. that may ultimately come back to our benefit.
Yeah,
Of revenue, yeah.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't have a problem with going down that path and starting to move that ball forward so that we have an option to, you know, because we're not going to be voting on the lease tonight. We're going to be voting to let staff start developing multiple options that would allow that lease to come to fruition as we start talking and getting more information. So I'm okay with that as we move forward.
Okay, so to get back into procedural arena, there was no second that I recall to Councilwoman Avala's motion to come back next week. So that appears to have died without a second. So is there a motion to give instruction to go forward to start crafting a lease with the Y that would provide for the Le Jardin sublease?
Mayor, for the record, I retracted that motion, and I will move that one.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Do we have a second to Councilwoman's motion to instruct staff to begin to go forward with the lease negotiation?
Second.
All right. We have a second. Is that by the Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Any further discussion on the motion? Let's have a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilman Ross?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Jaggers?
Yes.
Mayor Lawson?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you for your time and your efforts and your commitment.
And Mayor,
Really happy to-
just to confirm, the direction is to staff to explore lease alternatives, what options there could be with the Y that allows for Le Jardin sublease.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. And thank you, Ms. Woods.
Thank you. All right. Next item, tab 2, the approval of the September 8th, 2020 Committee of the Whole minutes. We have a motion to approve.
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Ross. I think I heard a second from Councilman Fletcher. Any nays? Minutes approved. Next item, tab 3. It's a motion to place car number 2998 on the council agenda, the Homestead Cyber reciprocal borrowing agreements. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Homestead and Miami-Dade County already have an executed reciprocal borrowing agreement, which essentially allows us to maintain continuity in the provision of free library services throughout Miami-Dade County once the Cyber opens. But there are 3 additional state-recognized municipal library systems within Miami-Dade County: North Miami Beach, and Hialeah Public Libraries. And in the spirit of promoting access for free library services, we want to enter into reciprocal borrowing agreements with each of those. So staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into reciprocal borrowing agreements with other libraries and library systems, including but not limited to the City of Hialeah, North Miami, and North Miami Beach Public Libraries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's interesting. You know, there's a lot of bad information out there, both in emails flying toward our city accounts and out there in social media. So I'm pleased to hear that, contrary to what be out there, we do have a reciprocal agreement after tonight with every library system that exists within Miami-Dade County, including the Miami-Dade County system, for free.
Correct. And we already have it in Miami-Dade County. It's just that these are 3 separate systems. But you're absolutely right.
But, you know,
yes.
There's, you know, the theories out there that you got to go pay $150 to join, and I don't know where these numbers come from, but thank you. Do we have a motion on this for approval of this item?
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Ross. Second by Councilwoman Avila. Do we have any further discussion from council? To anyone who wishes to be recorded as a nay vote on the reciprocal borrowing agreements? Motion carries. All right. Next item, tab 4. Motion to place car number 2984 on the agenda. ITB number 2020-17, fiber optic connection between City Hall and Utilities Building. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Due to conflicts with the Campbell Drive Truck Bypass Project, part of the city's underground fiber ring that connects City Hall to city electric utility and other city facilities on 6th Avenue, had to be physically removed. ITS has been able to temporarily establish connectivity between these facilities by using existing overhead fiber lines that are more than 20 years old. Due to their age, these fibers generate multiple errors and interruptions in communication and are very susceptible to severe weather events. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to award ITB number 202017 to Unitech Inc. in the amount of $87,500 for the construction and installation of a new underground fiber connection between City Hall and the Homestead Electric Utility Building. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP number 2119.
And we can't emphasize that enough, that this is already a budgeted item through the capital improvement plan.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a motion for approval?
Move it.
Okay, a motion by Councilwoman Bailey,
Second.
second by Councilman Roth. Any further discussion? None appearing. Would anyone wish to be recorded as a nay vote? None being heard. Motion carries to approve the fiber optic installation. Next item, tab 5, motion to place car number 2709 on the agenda. ITB 2020-25 blower assembly overhaul for engine number 16.
Mayor, the scavenger air blower for Fairbanks Morse engine number 16 has failed and requires an overhaul. The blower has been in service since 1972, and we expect once overhauled, the blower assembly will function for another 40 years with the proper maintenance. The air blower is used to increase the horsepower of the engine as the generator's electrical load is increased. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to award ITB number 202025 to Golden Service Company, Inc. in the amount of $43,705.92 for the overhaul of the blower assembly on engine number 16 at the city's electric power plant. In addition, staff recommends authorizing the Electric Utilities Department to allocate an additional $5,000 for any unforeseen conditions that might arise during inspection and disassembly. The contingency allocation will not grant any entitlement to the contractor, but will simply enable the department and the city manager to process small change orders, if any, without incurring any delays.
Thank you. And let's just note for the record that that blower assembly has been in service before everyone on council except me was born.
And me too.
Me too. Me too.
Put that in perspective, you guys. Okay. Do we have a motion for approval of this item?
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Roth.
Second.
Second by Councilman Fletcher. Did I chop a few years off your age, Councilman Roth? You and I might be the only one on the backside of that 1972.
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. We have a motion second for approval. Would anyone wish to be recorded as a nay vote? This item is approved. Moving right along. Tab 6. Motion to place car number 2931 on the council agenda, the purchase of a replacement F-250 utility truck. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase a 2020 Ford F-250 XL Super Duty red cab 4x4 truck from Bozard Ford Government Fleet for $35,961. This purchase will replace a 2006 Ford F-250 vehicle number 06075, which is used by Utility Electrical Facilities Division for day-to-day operations. The vehicle is 15 years old, and Fleet Management has recommended its replacement. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP number 2075. The purchase of this vehicle is in accordance with Florida Sheriff's Contract FSA 19-VEL 27.0. In order to ensure that the local vendors had an opportunity to participate in this vehicle purchase, the Procurement Division issued requests for information to local vendors, and no responses were received.
Okay. We have a motion for approval of this item. No new trucks?
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Roth.
I'll second.
Second by Councilwoman Bailey. There's no further discussion. Would anyone
Mr.
wish
Mayor?
to report? Yes, Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah, just, looking at the detailed items on the quote, here's an example of ways of sharpening that pencil. The installation of 4 corner LED strobes at $800. You can get a local person to do that for half of that cost. An aluminum toolbox, you can buy for $200 at Northern Tool, and it's $574 on here. Why do we need cruise control on a vehicle at $234 for one that drives around town at speeds of less than 40 miles an hour? These are just small items that we can look at that helps sharpen the pencil and get those extra dollars into our buckets. That's all I have. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. So, having said that, is there anyone who wishes to be recorded as a no vote on this purchase? None appearing, motion carries. Tab 7, motion to place car number 3016 on the council agenda, memorandum of understanding regarding PBA sergeants, detectives, officers, and corrections officers. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, and if it's okay with you and it's okay with legal, this item as well as 3017 have the same background. If I could read them together for approval.
Please.
On July 29, 2020, Miami-Dade County Mayor Carlos Jimenez notified union and municipal leaders that the Board of County Commissioners recommended the allocation of a 1% hazardous duty supplement for all first responders in geographic Miami-Dade County who are dedicated to substantially mitigating the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The funding for the 1% hazard pay exclusively comes from the CARES Act funding disbursements provided by the county and therefore will be cost neutral to the city. For car number 3016, staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the memorandum of understanding between the city of Homestead and the Police Benevolent Association for sergeants, detectives, officers, and correction officers, granting the members of this unit a federally funded 1% hazard pay supplement for all hours worked between March 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020. And for car number 3017, staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the memorandum of understanding between the city of Homestead and the Police Benevolent Association for lieutenants, granting the members of this unit a federally funded 1% hazard pay supplement for all hours worked between March 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020.
Thank you. And again, to be real clear to the public, this is CARES Act funding. This is not out of the general fund. These are allocations passing from the federal government to the county to the municipalities. So do we have a motion to approve tab 5 or tab 7, right?
7 and
7 and 8.
So
we need to do them separately, correct?
7 and 8.
Yeah. A motion for approval on tab 7.
Move it.
Moved by Councilman
Second.
by Councilman Roth. Anyone wish to be recorded as a nay vote? Motion carries. Tab 8, motion to approve.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Roth. There's no further discussion. Is there anyone who wishes to be recorded as a nay vote? Didn't think so. Thank you. Motion carries. Tab 9, motion to place car number 2978, ITB 2020-01, HVAC repair and maintenance.
Mayor, on July 2nd, 2020, the Procurement and Contract Service Division issued ITD 202001 HVAC repair and maintenance for all city facilities listed on the invitation to bid. Notices were sent to over 478 vendors and 2 responses were received. After thorough review, Temtrol Air Conditioning was found to be the lowest responsible bidder. As part of this award, Temtrol Air Conditioning will be required to furnish all labor, equipment, and materials. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to award ITB 202001 to Temtrol Air Conditioning, Inc. for groups 1, 5, and 6. The estimated annual expense for groups 1, various city locations, and group 5, Cybrarium, approximately $81,000 a year. Group 6 duct cleaning will be performed on an as-needed basis and with established departmental budgets. This is a 3-year agreement with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods upon the same terms, conditions, and mutual written consent of both parties. And Mayor, Temtrol did not bid on 2, 3, and 4 of this bid. and that includes the City Hall, the Police Department, and Seminole Theater. And JCI, the other bidder, did bid on those, and the city right now is in negotiations with JCI and also considering other options for these services to be provided at a reduced cost.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Motion to approve. Tab 9.
Move it.
I believe that's Vice Mayor moved approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Bailey. If there's no further discussion, does anyone wish to be recorded as a no vote?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. Any comment with that, or we're just going to record you as a no vote?
No versus previous comments made.
Thank you. All right, motion carries. Tab 10. Motion to place car number 2992 on our council agenda, Florida Department of Corrections Trustee Squad Services.
Mayor, the State of Florida Department of Corrections Homestead Correctional Institution is offering to provide the City of Homestead with up to 5 inmates to assist Parks and Recreation under the supervision of the city's Trustee Services Specialist. Crews are used to pick up trash and palm fronds, pick up shopping carts and miscellaneous debris, remove advertising signs from easements and right-of-ways, mow overgrown grass, and remove weeds, assist with any unforeseen maintenance issues that may arise. Staff recommends that the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter into an interagency agreement with the State of Florida Department of Corrections for the use of up to 5 inmates by the Parks and Recreation Department. This is a 3-year agreement with the option to renew for one additional 3-year period upon the same terms, conditions, and mutual written consent of both parties. This agreement is at no cost to the city.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this item? We have a motion for approval. Yes.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on this matter. Is there anyone who wishes to be recorded as a no vote?
Mr. Mayor, not a no vote, but I do have a question.
Sure.
I know that we've been not getting these services for a while due to COVID. Do we have an idea when this is going to start back?
We don't have an absolute idea when it's going to start back, but we're hoping that it starts back by the end of the month.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Does anyone wish to be recorded as a no vote on tab 10? Motion carries. Next item, tab 11. Motion to place car number 3019 on the council agenda, Office of the Attorney General Grant Agreement. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The Homestead Police Department has received $140,221 grant from the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General for Crime Victim Support Services. The grant will fund 2 full-time and 1 part-time victim advocates, which will provide judicial orientation and assistance linkage to therapeutic services, relocation, safety planning, and assistance with filing for victim compensation from the State of Florida. The program will run from October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021 and support an estimated 660 crime victims. This grant requires a 20% match will come from a currently funded detective. Staff recommends that the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter into an agreement and establish a budget for a grant award of $140,221 from the State of Florida Office of Attorney General Victims of Crime Assistance Grant for Crime Victim Support Services.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? We have a motion for approval of tab 11. We have a motion. Was that you, Councilman Roth?
Avila.
Oh, okay, because your name didn't pop up on my window here. Larry's did first. Okay. All right, so council, motion by Councilman Avila. Second
I'll
by
second
Councilman
it.
Roth. Okay.
There you go.
There we go. All right. Okay. Anything further on this matter? Would anyone wish to be recorded as a no vote on tab 11? Motion carries. Tab 12. Motion to place car number 3001 on the council agenda, ITB number 2020-32, Lossner Park Project.
Mr. Mayor, the Losner Park expansion is an important component in the city of Homestead's downtown revitalization vision. In order to expand and improve the park, the Procurement and Contract Division issued an ITB 202032 based on a final design concept approved by Council on February 20th, 2019, a rendering of which is included in this call item. The Losner Park project for the construction of a new park includes a new Veterans Memorial, which will have all of the names now on the existing brick memorial in the park will be included on this memorial. It includes landscaping, lighting, the playground area, band shell canopy, restrooms, great lawn, a smaller lawn, signage, animal sculptures, gardens, and also the size of Losner Park will go from 36,000 to 119,000 square feet. Due to budget constraints, the construction scope for the fountain feature in the restaurant have been removed from the project. However, these two items could potentially be added at a future date. If funding becomes available and it is will of the council, this will be done pretty readily as we will have fully permitted plans for both. The reduction in scope reduced the total price of the project from approximately $10 million to $5 million, which will be paid for entirely with existing park impact fees and a $500,000 grant. There is no impact to the general fund for this project. Staff recommends that the mayor and council authorize the city manager to award invitation to bid 202032 to West Construction, Inc. in the amount of $4,966,590 for the construction of Losner Park. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP 0546.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Madam Manager, it seems that I recall from sitting out in the audience downstairs, at some point we had a PowerPoint presentation as to the renderings and aerial views and so forth, and some detailed statistics as to, what the park would contain and what it would potentially look like. Is that something we still have here in-house?
We could certainly bring that to you, Mayor. I mean, there is a picture of what's included in the project in this car item, but if you wanted a more lengthy presentation that had been done before, we could bring it to you next week.
I think that would be beneficial for the public to see, to have available, to be part of the record. It's been well over a year since that was put out there, and I remember hearing discussions about rebranding, new logo, insignia, and so forth. Are we going to turn our attention to that now? Are there any potential renderings for specialty signage or for those types of things?
No, it doesn't include that. There is signage in the project, but and there were a number of different presentations. We can go back and look at what we have and get back to you before next week, and we'll get the right one before so the public can see it.
Well, that, and yeah, just to have an idea of where we're going. I mean, this has been a long time in the works, and it's a good refresher, and nice to know what to expect. Offhand, is the big rock that exists in the current Veterans Memorial, is that going to be incorporated somewhere? That's pretty significant to a lot of people, and it's been moved a couple of times from other private venues. Is that going to be incorporated, or is there another location for that, or do we know yet?
We're not sure yet. I don't believe it's going to be. It's not part of the Veterans Memorial. The Veterans Memorial is totally separate, and it does not include the rock. So exactly what's going to happen to the rock, we're not sure yet.
Well, as long as it doesn't get hit by a bulldozer at the moment,
no,
we can have that conversation later.
We can indeed, and we'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any further questions or comments from council? Do we have a motion to move this forward?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Bailey.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Roth. Any further discussion? Is there anyone who wishes to be recorded as a no vote? All right. Motion carries. Our next big project. Okay. Next item, tab 12, car number 3002. Discussion of fiscal year 2021 legislative packet.
This is discussion of the legislative packet. The packet includes much of last year's requests, including the Speedway tax relief, breast cancer screening, senior citizen program, undergrounding of electric circuits. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at it, but we can add or remove items as you wish. As you know, the 2021 legislative session begins March 2nd, 2021, and each year city staff compiles the list of legislative and funding requests, incorporates projects from the city's capital improvement plans, as well as other legislative requests.
Okay. Thank you. And looking at it based on my experience in Tallahassee in the past, and this year just ended, and knowing the budgetary constraints that our representatives there will be facing, we have time and perhaps we could come to some consensus as to our priorities. It's my perception that if we went up there with all of these in hand, their eyes would glaze over, and there's not really enough time to present all of them. And while they're all important to us, perhaps we need to think about what are the most important, and is there anything else that an individual council member would like to perhaps bring forward. But, you know, again, because we have a later start to the legislative session this year, I believe we have time to do that. Council? So what's staff looking for from us tonight? Just some input or?
Yes, Mayor, and if the council agreed with these requests, we would provide these to our lobbyists who would endeavor to get these items. I hear what you're saying. I don't know that, I mean, I think certainly we came so close with the Speedway tax relief as well as breast cancer screening that there's hope that we'll get those this year. But anything that we left out or anything that you thought we shouldn't have on there, we could certainly add or remove as the council wishes. If you leave it as it is right now, this is the packet that we would give to our lobbyists. If you want to look at it and we can ask you next week what section you want, we could do that as well.
Well, and I'm thinking, you know, we could move this forward, that's one of the council, but we also have an opportunity to perhaps add and delete prior to the start of the committee work.
Sure, we can do that, absolutely.
All right, council input as to the status of this package?
I have one question. Sorry, one question, Mayor. The $5 million for the Losner Park expansion, would that go towards this last design that we just approved? It wouldn't incorporate the fountain or restaurant, correct?
It could. That's why we left it in there. But yes, it could allow us to do those other pieces.
I was asking because I'm not sure that that's something that we should go ahead with right now. I love that the playground's happening and the theaters, but I think we could definitely wait on the restaurant and the water fountain and focus on some other areas.
Okay.
So there's just been a little verbiage that needs to be changed so that it doesn't say to include a water feature.
Well, but this money would supplement what we've already set aside.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all for now.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Mayor,
Yes.
So my question is, well, first a comment. The breast cancer funding had made it all the way to the governor's desk, and then it was vetoed. So that was a little disheartening. So hopefully this year we'll get a better result as it relates to that. But my question to you, Ms. McCaffrey, is have we had any conversations with our lobbyists? Have they given you any intel, direction as it relates to what will be priority items for this upcoming session, just so that we have an idea of items we should be potentially moving forward in lobbying?
Vice Mayor, we have had preliminary discussions with our lobbyists, and we specifically talked about the items that went all the way to the governor's veto, and they suggested that we keep those items exactly as they are, and they voiced some confidence that these would go forward, but obviously you know, obviously it's an unknown, but they absolutely recommended that we submit those as they were submitted last year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Fletcher.
Yeah, just, you know, I'm happy to move this forward, but I would still like to have a little bit of input, you know, before we do the final approval. I wanted to ask a quick question to staff. If there's funding available, or will the state assist us with potentially looking at addressing our outdated city code issues? Is that something we can look at? Or I know we don't have any funding for it in-house right now, but ultimately we need to make the determination as a body to move forward and clean up that city code that's quite outdated.
Councilman, generally speaking, most of the legislative requests are for capital projects. There obviously are some items that we request that aren't capital projects, such as the tax relief for the Speedway. I'm assuming that we can ask for anything. I don't know that that would be something that they could consider. We can talk to our lobbyists in the meantime and get a sense of whether or not they would recommend we do that.
Okay, that's just one item. I might have a couple of others to add to it, you know, of course, with everybody's approval for discussion. But I did have a chance to look at the package, but I'm still, you know, creating those thoughts in my head on some other ideas for us that could help us out. That's all I have.
Thank you. And of course, the reality is, if we ultimately prevail on the Speedway taxation issue, that's going to free up several $100,000 for the general fund to look at those kinds of needs that we have in-house.
Yeah, just with the understanding, we've been trying to get that since about 2000.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Maybe this is our year.
It's all in how you ask for it, right, Councilman? All right. So we have final item, correct? Yeah. So do you need a vote to move it forward as is, or do you have the consensus you need, Madam Manager?
You mean with respect to the legislative packet?
Yes.
Yes, we understand. We can move forward and we can listen to any changes you may want. And we'll follow up with the lobbyists as well. Thank you.
All right. And finally, you have a notification for us, tab 14.
We do indeed. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. Normally, cleaning services for the police department were provided by the inmates. However, back in March, due to COVID, the service was discontinued. In accordance with a then existing contract with USSI for cleaning services in other city facilities, we added the police department. And obviously, initially, it was unclear how long it would last, but as of September 30th, total cost for that additional service was $48,745. We bring it to you now because we have since put out to bid a contract for cleaning services that includes the police department. And as of October 1st, there's a new company providing those services throughout the city. So this is an emergency purchase notification to council by staff as required by City of Homestead Code of Ordinances, Section 2-413, emergency purchases. No council action is required for this item.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Pearl, anything further? I think you had asked for an executive session the last time we were all together.
Yes, I was going to ask if I could just chime in and ask for one this evening in the matter of Ackerman v. City of Homestead, case number 1-18 CV 21701 DPG. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Any further from council? All right, then, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Roth, loud and clear.
Second. Good night, everyone.
Second, Councilman Bailey. And I know we're all in favor. Good night, everyone, and thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.